Chapter 299. Today's first update. Half an hour later. I'm still working on it, Xiao Buyu's feminine voice resounded. It sounded like a volcano that was about to erupt. There was an indescribable pressure in his voice. Did you see anyone come out? The 12 experts looked at each other in dismay. You were the first to rush in. But, you didn't find anything. So, how can you expect us to find anything? No one has come out. Second brother, rest assured. The 12 of us have already locked down this area. Not even a mosquito can fly out within a 200-meter radius. So, second brother, please do your best, the third elder said with a solemn expression as he placed his hand on the hilt of his sword. His hair was as white as silver, and his beard was as white as snow. Third brother is right. Second brother, you can rest assured, the others immediately responded in a solemn manner. Xiao Buyu would have been very pleased if he had heard these words before. In fact, he would have been very proud. After all, there was no doubt about the abilities of these brothers. However, Xiao Buyu found these bold words funny. In fact, he felt so ashamed that he couldn't even show his face. A strong feeling of powerlessness rose from the bottom of his heart. He looked up to the sky and sighed. He was incomparably lonely as he slowly descended from the sky. He then stood on the roof of the magnificent jewel hall in a daze. Second brother, what happened? Everyone could see that there was something wrong with his demeanor. So, they couldn't help but gather around him and ask in a concerned manner. We've fallen. Xiao Buyu sighed as he looked into the distance. His expression was very bleak. There was unwillingness, loneliness, and a strong sense of humiliation on his face. Who is this person who stole the soul-replenishing jade? Looking around the world, who could have such unfathomable means? They come without a trace. They come without a shadow. They come without a trace. They leave no trace. Even if it was the first Supreme Yun Bichen and the other legendary figures, could they do something like this? Fallen. Second brother, you mean? The other 12 people turned pale with fright. They weren't fools. They knew that Xiao Buyu had said that someone had come to steal the soul-replenishing jade. After hearing those words, everyone already knew what had happened. They guessed that the mysterious expert must have come. Each of them was in high spirits, waiting to have a showdown with the other party. However, they couldn't even see the shadow of a single person. So, they thought that it was a false alarm. But then, they heard Xiao Buyu say, "We've been screwed." If he still couldn't understand the meaning of this sentence, then he would have lived for so long in vain. Could it be? Everyone looked at Xiao Buyu in disbelief. They looked at the expression on Xiao Buyu's face. Everyone had used questioning words to express their disbelief. But, their tone had been firm. Yes, you guessed right. The soul-replenishing jade had already fallen into that person's hands. This is an undeniable fact. Xiao Buyu spoke in a soft and gloomy voice. He seemed to be very depressed. I didn't even see anyone. The soul-replenishing jade had disappeared without a trace. Then, I chased after him, but I didn't see him either. And, you obviously didn't find any clues either. Our Silver Blizzard City has suffered a big loss this time. How could that be? Second brother, don't forget that the soul-replenishing jade still has your divine sense restriction and the 1,000-mile soul-locking incense. The ninth elder opened his eyes wide. Wouldn't it be easy for us to find him if we had those two things? As soon as he said this, the rest of the people had a strange expression that said, "You're an idiot," on their faces. Why would the second brother show such a mournful expression if those two methods were effective? However, everyone's complexion changed as they thought of this. It's no use. This person used a supreme method to erase my divine sense restriction the moment he got the soul-replenishing jade. Moreover, he also removed the smell of the 1,000-mile soul-locking incense. Even Xiao Xiang is helpless now. Xiao Buyu smiled bitterly. He looked up at the small green eagle that was circling in the sky. He felt powerless. How is this possible? The other 12 people sucked in cold air. The divine sense restriction resonates with the user's divine sense once it's activated. And it's connected to the user's divine sense. So, no one can easily sever this invisible and mysterious connection. Who could have severed it? And what kind of strength does it take to sever it? Moreover, the 1,000-mile soul-locking incense is a secret medicine unique to this city. It sticks to the body as if it's stuck to your soul. You won't be able to get rid of it for the rest of your life unless you use the city's unique antidote. So, how did this person get rid of it? All of this is simply too unbelievable. Second brother, are you sure? A heavy voice sounded. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice. It was the fifth elder. He was the most cautious of the 9 brothers. I'm sure. Xiao Buyu sighed and frowned. It seemed as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. Then, he said in a low voice, the only thing I find strange is that this person was able to erase my divine sense restriction in an instant. Moreover, he was able to get rid of the 1,000-mile soul-locking incense in an instant. So, his strength can't be said to be the best in the world. But, he must be several levels higher than us. So, it should be easy for him to get the soul-replenishing jade from our hands. In fact, it wouldn't be impossible for him to force us to hand over the rest of the soul-replenishing jade. But, why? Everyone understood the reason as soon as he said this. That's right. This person can be said to be an unrivaled expert. So, why would he willingly carry the name of a thief in order to steal from the hands of the younger generation? You must know that it would be an unerasable stain on his reputation if this matter were to come to light in the future. So, there's no way to explain this. Everyone remained silent. Even if they were to face the 8 great masters, they would still have the courage to fight them with their current strength. In fact, they would even have the strength to defeat them. But they were faced with this mysterious man who hadn't shown himself from the beginning to the end. But, he had managed to defeat the 13 great experts of the Silver City. So, everyone felt a little resentful. In fact, they felt a heartfelt fear. It's fortunate that such a person only wanted to steal the jade. Wouldn't it be like pinching a snail with 2 fingers if he really wanted to deal with one of our own? The 7 swords of the Silver Blizzard City didn't have any expression on their faces. But, the knuckles of their hands that were gripping the hilts of their swords had turned white. This old man hasn't left the Silver Blizzard City for 30 years. And, I've come here full of ambition. But, I've been defeated. Xiao Buyu's hands were clasped behind his back as he stood at the top of the magnificent Jewel Hall's pavilion. His eyes were distant as he looked at the lights of the Tianxiang city. Then, he let out a long sigh, and remained motionless for a long time. The other 12 people felt an unusual pressure in their hearts. In fact, they almost couldn't breathe. The dense darkness of the Tianxiang city felt as if the vast sky had suddenly pressed down on them. In fact, it seemed as if everyone's hearts were being pressured by the darkness of the night. Today's matter must be reported to the Silver Blizzard City as soon as possible. Then, we must set out for the Southern Heaven City. This isn't a good place. So, we must leave as soon as possible. Xiao Buyu's white hair, beard, and robe were fluttering in the night wind. His voice had an indescribable feeling of desolation and sadness. It was as if the confidence and pride that he had built up over a long period of time in his heart had been completely extracted from his body as he spoke these words. It gave everyone an indescribable feeling of sorrow. This feeling was similar to that of a hero at the end of his road. Second brother, the 12 people cried out in concern. Xiao Buyu flicked his sleeves and spoke in a deep voice, it's useless to think too much. Everyone, go to sleep. Then, his body flashed, and he suddenly disappeared from the roof. Only a heavy feeling of desolation was left behind. Jun Moxie quickly put away the soul-replenishing jade into the Hongjun Pagoda the moment he succeeded. Then, he used the Yinyang escape with all his might. He stood motionless in the corner of Xiao Fengwu's room, and calmly watched the situation unfold. Xiao Buyu had fiercely rushed in the moment he put away the jade. His sharp Xian Qi and his spirit sense had spread out in all directions. It seemed as if thousands of sharp swords were flying in the air. Jun Moxie couldn't even breathe. He couldn't help but feel startled in his heart. This top-notch character of the Silver Blizzard City is no small matter. However, his imposing manner isn't inferior to that of the solitary eagle. But, it seems that he isn't inferior in any other aspect. No wonder the Silver Blizzard City's plan is so full of confidence. Then, Jun Moxie had watched a good show for free. Jun Moxie had only one feeling about the Silver Blizzard City's conjectures. The world is truly marvelous. I can only be regarded as a small shrimp at this stage. But, I've been forcibly elevated to the position of number one under the heavens by these alligators of Xinxian. It's so cool. It's so cool. Jun Dashao was obviously only watching at the moment. He couldn't express any opinion. Jun Moxie wasn't far from Xiao Buyu's side while Xiao Buyu was in a state of depression. He was hugging his knees as he watched with great interest. In fact, he seemed to be taking pleasure in Xiao Buyu's misfortune. Jun Moxie was surprised to see that Xiao Buyu had made a prompt decision to leave for the Southern Heaven City. But, he also breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. He knew that these people would look for an opportunity to make things difficult for him, the third uncle, and even the solitary eagle once they reached the Southern Heaven City. But, Jun Moxie wasn't worried at all. Won't the Southern Heaven City be tantamount to returning to my own home with my spiritual energy? Why would I be afraid of them? What a joke! In fact, Jun Moxie was most worried about the fact that the Silver Blizzard City would intercept Jun Wui's army on the road. The possibility of that happening was very small and nonsensical. But, Jun Moxie was worried about this the most. Everything else wasn't important in comparison to this. Therefore, Jun Moxie stayed on the roof of the magnificent Jewel Hall that night. He didn't leave. He wanted to see the Silver Blizzard City's people leave in order to be at ease. Moreover, he wanted to delay the army's journey as much as possible after they left. Otherwise, it would be too bad if they waited for him on the road. In the early hours of the morning, Jun Moxie witnessed the Silver Blizzard City's 6 great elders. The 7 Tianxian experts, Mu Shuetong, and Xiao Han left the magnificent Jewel Hall with a pale and weak Xiao Fengwu and the Silver Blizzard City's little princess, Han Yanmeng, and their luggage. Then, they left the Tianxiang city. Jun Moxie then tailed them for 30 to 40 kilometers. Then, he came back with relief after he was sure that they were hurrying along. They're finally gone. Damn it! The Tianxiang city is my world now. Jun Dashao felt as light as a feather all the way. Chapter 300. He saw a group of soldiers escorting more than 10 large carriages clustered around the Jun family's main gate. There was also a group of soldiers who were continuously unloading boxes from the carriages. One by one, the boxes were either exquisite or loose. They were being moved into the Jun family's residence in an orderly manner. The pungent smell of medicine was coming from these boxes. Fortunately, the boxes were being moved in and not out. Otherwise, Jun Moxie's first reaction would have been, they're being raided. The scene was chaotic enough, but it was not over yet. There were dozens of old men and middle-aged men in long robes and mandarin jackets wailing and begging, making the scene even more chaotic. What the hell is going on? What's going on? Is this necessary? The young Master Jun was full of doubts as he passed through the crowd. He was just about to step into the house when a few middle-aged men who had been crying saw him. They rushed over, and knelt down in front of him with a plop sound. They begged with tears and snot, "Third young Master Jun, please be merciful, and let us go. We are willing to offer you a longevity tablet and bless you with a long life. You will be a marquis for 10,000 generations. But, we are just a pitiful small business, and we have the elderly and children to take care of. Please be merciful." Jun Moxie was startled. What does this have to do with me? What kind of words are these? Why does this young master sound more and more like those legendary bullies who force women into prostitution, who bully men and women, who wreak havoc? What kind of person is this? What kind of thing is this? What the hell is going on? June Moxie frowned. He knew that he would not be able to get any answers from the people involved, so he directly asked the soldiers. Unexpectedly, the soldiers shook their heads, indicating that they did not know the reason. Just as June Dashao was feeling gloomy, the ground suddenly trembled and a huge head walked over. Third young master, I've brought you all the medicine you wanted. I've brought all the medicine that I could get and those that I couldn't. Fatty Tang's unique tone of voice came up to him like he was presenting a treasure. His fat hands, bigger than a bear's paw, gestured, "Here, these are all. Since we're brothers, you can rest assured." June Moxie felt a little dizzy. "I told you to bring as many medicinal ingredients as possible, but this is a little too much. Also, what are these old men and middle-aged men doing?" He couldn't help but ask, "How did you get so much medicine? And what's going on with these people?" Third young master, we're all on the same side, so why do you have to speak like an outsider? Are you pretending to be confused?" Tang Yuan squinted his eyes, as if saying, "I understand and you understand. Young Master Tang, young Master June, please be magnanimous and let us go. Leave us a way out." Those people surrounded Fatty as soon as they saw him arrive. They then knelt down like dumplings, and started to kowtow as if they were pounding garlic. "You!" June Moxie was stunned for a long time before he vaguely understood the whole story. Looking at the situation in front of him, Fatty had probably raided these few pharmacies. Otherwise, there would be no place to buy such a huge amount of medicinal ingredients. You were in such a hurry at that time, and the quantity was so large. Where was I going to buy it for you in such a short time? So, this young master frowned, and a plan came to mind. I immediately devised a strategy, and won the battle from 1,000 miles away. Speaking of this matter, Tang Yuan was very pleased with himself. He beamed with joy and said, "So, I made arrangements overnight to buy their medicinal ingredients from these pharmacies. But we asked for too much, and they actually said they were not willing. They said that if we sold them like that, they wouldn't be able to carry on with their daily business." June Moxie rolled his eyes speechlessly. "You're talking nonsense. If you buy all their medicinal ingredients in one go, how are they going to carry on with their business? You should at least leave a few days for them to turn over, right? If you want all of them just like that, are you going to leave an empty shop for them?" So Big Brother got angry. Tang Yuan glared at him with a murderous look in his eyes. "Damn it, you actually used the excuse of not being able to do business with me to reject me. Since you don't want to do business with me, is it clear that you're bullying your customers? How preposterous. You dare to bully us two brothers? Is there still any law? Since that's the case, this young master might as well make sure that they can never do business again." So this morning, this young master went to the Ministry of Justice and asked for an official document. Then, I started a vigorous reorganization. At the same time, I closed the shops of the biggest and most arrogant ones. Now, all the medicinal ingredients have been sent here. June Moxie staggered. "What excuse did you use to raid my house? You want the approval from the Ministry of Justice just like that? Isn't that too awesome? Third young master. Are you stupid? Why are you speaking like a layman?" Tang Yuan looked at him suspiciously. "As brothers, do we still need a reason to raid these people's houses? Raiding their houses means that we think highly of them. Putting a bunch of groundless things on us first, we'll talk about other things after raiding their houses. After a few days, if we're in a good mood, we'll let them go. If we're still in a bad mood, we'll just arrest them all and cut their heads off. That's all. It's so annoying." Tang Yuan curled his lips and snorted twice. June Moxie's eyes widened. For the first time, he realized that he hadn't completely integrated with his original identity after crossing over. Tang Yuan's words were very reasonable. In such a feudal society, if a prince like Tang Yuan and June Moxie wanted to open a pharmacy, was it really as Tang Yuan said, "Do we still need a reason?" But, isn't this too overbearing and tyrannical? Not to mention anything else, whether it was June Moxie or Tang Yuan, they were both leaders of the princes who could do whatever they wanted. Not to mention raiding a commoner's house. Even if they killed a bunch of people, they could still go to the Ministry of Justice and say, "I killed them." But, if you want to make it seem like they deserved it, and that I acted bravely in self-defense, I should be commended by the Imperial Court. That's right, I also have to make the victims compensate for my mental damage. Humph, I was frightened. After I'm done, I'll send all the victims to jail. Don't let them bother me outside. If you guys don't do well, I definitely don't mind letting you guys play for a few days. It's decided. This was the advantage of having a high position and authority. How many people in the entire Tianxiang kingdom could afford to offend the two great families, the Tang family and the Jun family? Not to mention this world, even if it was my previous life. I didn't say anything, this is a different world. Turning around, Jun Moxie looked at the pleading eyes of the crowd, and counted a total of 7 pharmacy shopkeepers. This was too much. Fatty's actions would have been enough for the hitman Jun to kill him. But his motive, you say, this matter, did you guys hear it just now? Do you know what's going on? Let me tell you, I'm not happy right now. Why don't you ask around, in Tianxiang, who dares to not do business with me? Nonsense, Tang Yuan had directly shouted at the top of his lungs, how could they not hear him? At this time, even his intestines had turned green with regret. If I had known earlier, I would have sold it to him at a low price, or even directly given it to him. At most, I wouldn't be able to do business for 10 days to half a month. But now, I'm about to be ruined. Everyone fiercely nodded their heads like chickens pecking at rice. We are willing to offer our entire family's assets to the 2 young masters. We only ask that the 2 young masters let us off, and be merciful. Fu *K. Is this young master that poor? Do I need you to offer anything? Besides, you don't have anything good to offer. Only medicines. Damn it, how can you give me medicine as a gift? Are you looking forward to my whole family getting sick? You'll only be happy if all of you die. Tang Yuan shouted loudly as he pulled the Shun Feng flag. We're looking forward to your whole family getting sick. It'll be a blessing for the people if you all die. The group of pharmacies cursed in their hearts, but their mouths were filled with fear and trepidation as they repeatedly apologized. Everyone, please get up. Our aristocratic hall is in urgent need of a large number of medicinal ingredients. So, we had no choice but to use this method to obtain these medicinal ingredients. I'll kindly accept these medicinal ingredients. You can arrange for the accountant to settle the bill with young Master Tang. This young master has always done things with the genuine goods at fair prices. I've never cheated anyone. What do you think? Jun Moxie considered it over and over again. Then, he finally opened his mouth. What was the point of making things difficult for these pharmacies given his status? There wasn't any pleasure in it. Besides, Fatty had acted too excessively in this matter. So, it would be better to settle this matter as soon as possible. It wouldn't be appropriate to provoke unnecessary trouble. Yes. This lowly one wouldn't dare. Why wouldn't I dare? I have the final say. Well, you can go back first. This matter is settled. Jun Moxie frowned and looked at Tang Yuan. Give them double the price for all the medicinal ingredients that I urgently need. In any case, I've already ordered them to prepare more goods. Moreover, I've also ordered the authorities to remove the charges as soon as possible. Let them be acquitted. Fatty Tang's fat face twitched in distress. Double the price. This lowly one wouldn't dare. The pharmacy's owners heaved a long sigh of relief as the matter was finally settled. They didn't need to talk about those troublesome medicinal ingredients. At the very least, their lives were saved. Actually, I don't need that much. After I'm done filtering, you can take back the rest that you don't need. Jun Moxie nodded. Just as he was about to take a step forward, he stopped and said, "Oh, right. Call all of your pharmacy's employees over. Help me sort through them. Otherwise, how long will it take to sort through so many medicinal ingredients?" The few shop owners agreed with a bitter look on their faces. They thought to themselves, what kind of world is this? We've been doing business honestly. Who did we offend? Suddenly, they raided our shops for no reason. Then, they threatened us with death. In the end, we have to be grateful to them for letting us go. We even have to send our own employees over to help us. We even have to take back those that they don't need. We even have to put on a smiling face. Despicable? Truly despicable. If we knew this would happen, why did we do it in the first place? For a time, in the hearts of the 7 bosses, these words rose up at the same time. Alright, there's nothing else. Just do as I say. Everyone, disperse. Jun Moxie lifted his robe and took a few steps through the door. He could faintly hear Tang Yuan's voice behind him. He seemed to be gritting his teeth as he said, "Come, come, come. Take your pick. I'll give you double the price, we don't dare, we don't dare." A series of fearful voices echoed. Chapter 301. 2 chapters are 17,000 words. Naturally, the original Jun Moxie wouldn't have hesitated to use Tang Yuan's method if he had encountered such a situation. Jun Moxie wasn't the original Jun Moxie. The evil monarch was evil, and could be considered a debauchee. But, he wasn't like the original Jun Moxie and Tang Yuan, who were debauchous to the bone. Moreover, Jun Moxie had always been used to relying on himself. So, he had always been a vigilante and punishing evil. The original Jun Moxie was used to using his power to oppress others. The two men's way of doing things and thinking were poles apart. So, how could they be unified? However, it had to be said that Tang Yuan's stroke of genius had genuinely solved Jun Moxie's pressing problem. Time was of the essence. And, Jun Moxie was a complete rookie when it came to refining pills. He hadn't practiced for a long time. Moreover, he didn't even have the necessary ingredients, but Fatty Tang had solved the biggest problem. His method was indeed a bit despicable. But, Jun Moxie certainly wouldn't blame him. He would give the bosses of these families some money as compensation. It would be reasonable for them to make up for their losses. This kind of thing was obviously unfair to them. But, how could there be true fairness in this world? This young master can cross over. Can you? This isn't fair, heaven and earth aren't complete. There's no such thing as absolute fairness in this world. So, why do you have to think of everything as perfect? However, it didn't matter whether it was fair or not. He would officially start refining pills tonight. That was the most important thing. Jun Moxie was looking forward to seeing what he would refine. The cold-blooded Master Lei Wu Bei appeared in the sky above the Jun family's courtyard. His complexion was pale gold. Solitary Eagle, what time is it? The Silver City's people have already started to move. Are you still not going to move? How long do you plan to delay? Are you afraid of the beast tide? If one were to look carefully, they would be able to see that this cold-blooded sovereign's complexion was not very good. His eyes were also faintly bloodshot, and the condition of his spirit was extremely poor. To be able to cause a sovereign-level expert to have such an appearance, the instigator could definitely be proud. If I want to leave, I'll leave. If I don't want to leave, I won't leave. I'll leave whenever I want to. Why do you care? Solitary Eagle retorted in an extremely displeased tone. Solitary Eagle was frustrated. Why did this supreme summon come out of nowhere at such a critical moment? You should have waited until I had comprehended the 9 styles of the ghostly hawk. If I leave for the southern heaven region now, the journey will be long. Plus, there are important matters waiting for me. Who knows when I will be able to come back and cultivate in peace? Did you think it was easy for me to get such a good opportunity? If he really missed it, where could he go to buy medicine for regret? Lei Wu Bei snorted and spoke in a gloomy tone, this old man is leaving today. Solitary Eagle, there are only the 2 of us in the Tianxiang city at the moment. We have some personal grievances between us, but we'll have to put them aside for the time being because of the supreme summon. You're one of the 8 great masters. You should know the consequences of violating the supreme summon. This old man wanted to travel with you, but I didn't expect you to be so unappreciative. Not to mention the solitary falcon, even Jun Xia was startled by Lei Wu Bei's words. When did the cold-blooded sovereign ask someone to travel with him? Moreover, it's solitary eagle. This is even more unimaginable. However, the two of them didn't know that Lei Wu Bei had been frantically searching the Tianxiang city for the enemy who had killed his disciple. He had been searching for the so-called supreme assassin Chu Chihuan in his mind. Lei Wu Bei's mental state had been extremely tense, and he hadn't dared to relax in the slightest. He had been constantly on guard against Chu Chihuan's deadly sneak attacks. He had persisted until now, and had become physically and mentally exhausted. Lei Wu Bei was a great master. Anyone else would have had a nervous breakdown by now. He had received the supreme summon at the moment, and thought about the long journey to the southern heaven region. Whether it was the forests or the inns along the way, they were the easiest places for an assassin like Chu Chihuan to take advantage of. Moreover, the enemy was in the dark while he was in the light. He was afraid that his illustrious reputation would go down the drain if he wasn't careful. Therefore, he had decided to ask Solitary Eagle to travel with him. He and Solitary Eagle had their differences, but it wasn't an irreconcilable enmity. Chu Chihuan wouldn't dare to assassinate either one of them if he could get Solitary Eagle's help and travel with the two great masters. A figure flashed, and Solitary Eagle appeared in front of Lei Wu Bei. Lei Wu Bei, tell me the truth. What are you planning? Are you afraid? Lei Wu Bei snorted in a provocative manner. Afraid? Ha ha ha, this old man knows that you're trying to provoke me. But, I'm going to travel with you. I want to see what kind of tricks you're playing. Solitary Eagle laughed. Wait. Jun Dashao couldn't keep his cool when he saw that the two men were about to leave. He hastily opened his mouth to stop them. He hadn't forgotten that the people from the Silver Blizzard City had left first. So, they were probably waiting for Solitary Eagle. Lei Wu Bei wanted to borrow Solitary Eagle's strength to deal with Chu Chihuan. But, Lei Wu Bei wouldn't lend a helping hand if something happened to Solitary Eagle. So, he wouldn't step in to help him. What's the matter? Solitary Eagle frowned. My master has returned. He wants me to pass on a few words to you. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes and said. Solitary Eagle jumped down with a schwa sound as he heard these words. He seemed to be in high spirits. In fact, he seemed to be impatient. What words? Speak quickly, boy. Lei Wu Bei was left dumbstruck in the sky. Who is this boy's master? How can he have such a great power? Solitary Eagle, one of the 8 great masters, jumped down with just a few words. My master said to let you remember these words. The eagle soars in the sky, like the clouds floating in the sky, the wind flowing in the sky, not in the eagle, not in the wind and clouds, but in the sky. All things are not empty, all things are empty. Jun Moxie wasn't long-winded. He directly told Solitary Eagle the most important mnemonic formula. Naturally, he had used his own secret telepathy technique. The cold-blooded master, Lei Wu Bei, could only see his lips move. But, he couldn't hear a single word. The eagle soars in the sky like the clouds, and the wind flows in the sky. Not in the eagle, not in the wind and clouds. But in the sky. All things are empty. All things are empty. Solitary Eagle frowned as he pondered. He seemed to have understood something. But, he still hadn't grasped the gist of it. His eyes revealed a perplexed look. This is a superb concept. It can only be understood, but it can't be conveyed in words. But, it can't be understood in a short time. My master knows that you are about to rush to the southern heaven region. I'm afraid that you will encounter fierce battles there. So, I told you this in advance. I didn't want to delay your progress in cultivation. Many thanks. Solitary Eagle's unruly face revealed a trace of gratitude as he cupped his hands. My master also said that the Silver Blizzard City's 6 elders, Shen Xian, and the 7 Silver City's 7 swordsmen have already gone to the southern heaven region. They are prepared to deal with you. Please be careful. Only by being careful can you sail a ship for 10,000 years. The Silver City's 6 elders, Shenxian. The 7 swordsmen. Could it be the Silver City's 7 swords? Solitary Eagle's complexion became serious. Solitary Eagle wouldn't have believed this if someone else had told him this. But it was June Moxie's mysterious master. So, Solitary Eagle believed it without a doubt. That being the case, there are advantages and disadvantages to traveling with Lei Wu Bei, as long as the operation is done properly. In fact, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. The solitary falcon muttered to himself for a long time. Then, his expression changed as he said, "Does your master have anything else to say?" "My master said that the divine eagle will soar into the sky when you return." June Moxie chuckled. He then cupped his hands in salute, "Have a safe journey. Be careful. Farewell." Solitary Eagle clasped his hands in a solemn manner, "Thank your master for me once again." Solitary Eagle admires your master very much. Solitary Eagle has always kept the June family's matter in his heart. Please rest assured. Solitary Eagle let out a long and loud cry as he finished speaking. Then, he soared into the sky. Lei Wu Bei laughed out loud as he soared into the sky to catch up. The 2 figures flashed in the sky, and disappeared without a trace. Indeed, there isn't a single supreme being that can be trifled with. June Mo Xia sighed deeply. Then, he turned around and returned to his room. That night, countless Xian experts in the Tianxiang city, regardless of their cultivation level or background, hurriedly packed up their things. Then, they left for the southern heaven city in groups of 3 or 5. After all, no one dared to treat the great master's summons lightly. Even Song Shang and Hai Chen-feng went to the June family's residence to ask for instructions. They expressed their desire to go and help. But, they were stopped by June Moxie. "What are you 2 going to do? Are you tired of living? You're not allowed to go. Song Shang will brew your wine. If you dare to slack off, you'll be expelled from the sect. As for Hai Chen-feng, you don't need to worry about anything else. You just need to focus on developing your gang. You don't need to worry about anything else. I can't stop Solitary Eagle if he wants to leave. I don't have the right to stop him. But, how can June Dashao let the 2 of them leave the June family? What if something happens in the Tianxiang city if we leave the June family's residence? But, Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang, these 2 Tianxian experts, will stay in the capital to take care of the June family. Then, the June family will be considered as the strongest party in the capital even if something happens. So, they won't suffer any losses. Even if they don't need to take care of the June family, they can't be allowed to go to the southern heaven city. Both of them are labeled as members of the June family. So, they'll probably be used as cannon fodder by the Shao family or the Li family if they go to the southern heaven city. They may have the strength of Tianxian, but the southern heaven city is full of Shenxian. And, Tianxian is like a dog. So, it's better for them to stay in the Tianxiang city. My brother has spent a lot of effort to gather a team. So, how can I leave them in the southern heaven city? Xian beast-tied? What a joke. What does it have to do with me even if everyone dies? Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang had been in high spirits when they heard this. However, they had no choice but to listen to June Mo Xia's words. So, they had no choice but to go back in embarrassment. Inside the second prince's residence, the second prince was very happy at this time. He felt very comfortable. He even wondered if everyone in the world was cooperating with him. The crossbow I want is about to arrive in the capital city. But, the 2 great masters have issued a summons at this time. So, almost all of the famous and unknown Xian experts have gone there. Even the Tianxiang city is no exception. So many experts have left. So, the strength of the capital city is bound to be unprecedentedly weak. But, my super-powerful weapons have already arrived. And, my men have already been equipped with these murderous weapons. So, they'll be like tigers that have grown wings. Wouldn't it be very easy for me to stir up trouble in the capital city when the time comes? Therefore, the second prince and his advisors were nervously discussing this matter in a secret room. Everyone seemed a little excited. Mr. Fong, inform the Divine Wind Guards that they can set off from the south and rush to the capital city as soon as possible. The second prince looked amiably at his number one advisor. I asked Mr. Fong to help me with this matter. Please rest assured, second master. This is Fong Bo Wen's duty. I will do my utmost to ensure that nothing goes wrong. Fong Bo Wen pondered for a moment. Then, he said, the Zhao Trading Company will be escorting a total of 200 people. Moreover, 2 Yu Xian experts will be leading them. Moreover, the Jiangnan's number 1 guild, Meng Xiao Song, will be leading 81st class warriors. Meng Xiao Song is an Earth Xian expert. So, there's nothing to worry about with him. The Zhao Trading Company is in the light, and the guild is in the dark. The Divine Wind Guards and the Zhao Trading Company will be traveling together. Moreover, this old man has already informed the Blood Sword Hall. The Blood Sword Hall will be sending 2 Tian Xian assassins, 5 Earth Xian assassins, and 20 Yu Xian assassins to secretly escort the Zhao Trading Company. Not to mention that the strength of the influential families in the capital city is at its weakest right now. In fact, such a huge force would be enough to ensure that nothing goes wrong even on a normal day. Humph, the Blood Sword Hall has never dispatched an assassin with a rank higher than Yu Xian for my sake. This has led to several failed assassins. It's a waste of labor and money, but there's no harvest. But this time, the Xian Beast Tendon Crossbow has appeared, and they've unexpectedly dispatched 2 Tian Xian assassins and 5 Earth Xian experts. The lowest level assassin in this group is actually Yu Xian. This kind of method really makes this prince bitterly disappointed. The second prince was indignant as he angrily said, the Blood Sword Hall has always been unfathomable. This old man also doesn't understand the reason behind this. Fong Bo Wen frowned. However, this batch of crossbows is of great importance to the Blood Sword Hall. So, it's not without reason that they're being so cautious. It's a fortunate thing. One must know that if one doesn't look out for oneself, heaven and earth will destroy them. Fong Bo Wen's voice suddenly paused here. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Then, he felt a burst of fear. It was as if he had thought of something extremely frightening. The second prince didn't notice the abnormal state of his chief strategist. His anger hadn't yet dissipated. He took a few deep breaths and coldly said, forget it. Once we get the crossbows, there won't be many uses for the Blood Sword Hall. This is also a good thing. We won't have to suffer from their inexplicable anger anymore. Fong Bo Wen's white eyebrows were tightly knitted together. A deep worry suddenly appeared in his eyes. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. However, he seemed to think that his idea was ridiculous. It was too fantastic. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. However, the faint worry in his eyes seemed to have grown even stronger. The speaker had no intention, but the listener had an intention. The second prince's complaint was nothing more than a complaint. However, in Fong Bo Wen's ears, it was like a thunderclap on a clear day. Everything that was hazy gradually became clear. Do I still need to think of another way to retreat? On the other side, the second prince had his hands behind his back. He had a confident look on his face as he smiled to himself. With strong confidence and the hope of achieving his goal, he muttered, if I can take this opportunity to make eldest and third prince truly. He didn't finish his thought, but his face was full of malice. Suddenly, he turned around and said, Mr. Fong, how is Yu's arrangement going? Lady Yu hasn't made any movements in the past few days. Even Lady Yu herself has rarely appeared. Moreover, we've sent people to contact her, but the Ni Chong Pavilion's attitude has been quite ambiguous. This is really puzzling. Fong Bo Wen's words were extremely slow. Moreover, his words weren't very fluent. In fact, he even got stuck several times. It was obvious that his heart wasn't calm. Moreover, he wasn't only thinking about this matter. Humph. A cold light flashed in the second prince's eyes. He was silent for a long time. Then, he said, "Let's not talk about that for the time being. In any case, she won't be able to stir up any big waves. What about Qing De Chao? What has he been busy with these days? How come I haven't seen his shadow for several days?" Fong Bo Wen's eyes revealed a trace of disgust. It was obvious that this young Master Qing didn't have a good reputation in the prince's mansion. Fong Bo Wen continued, "This young Master Qing, this old man hasn't seen him for several days. It seems that he's been busy with something, but he hasn't let anyone know about it. He's very mysterious. Moreover, the Qing clan's people haven't arrived yet. I don't know if there have been any changes, this." The second prince frowned. He paced back and forth a few steps. Then, he said in a gloomy manner, "Let's put aside all these trivial matters for the time being. We'll wait for the crossbows to arrive. Then, we'll make a decision." A murderous look flashed across his pale face. "A woman and a young master of an aristocratic family, humph. Who do you think you are? How dare you defy me in secret? Don't think that you can act recklessly because of my good impression of you. You'll regret it. And Qing De Chao, does he really think that he's a great person? This prince can destroy the Qing clan in a few days." "Yes." Fong Bo Wen was aware of the second prince's murderous look. His white eyebrows twitched. He couldn't help but tremble in his heart. This prince is ruthless and ruthless. But, how can he be so shallow? He's so domineering even before he's accomplished anything. How will he fare in the future if he succeeds? He was getting more and more bored. So, he couldn't help but lower his eyes, and keep his thoughts to himself. The second prince stared at the moonlight outside the window. Suddenly, his face seemed to be on fire, and a fanatical look appeared on his face. In his eyes, there seemed to be a scorching flame burning. It was as if he felt that he was already a supreme being, the emperor, the Jun family. Jun Moxie also couldn't sleep that night. Jun Moxie had carefully sifted through the list of medicines. And, he had managed to collect more than 200 of them in one go. There weren't any rare elixirs among them. And, there weren't any legendary heavenly treasures either. But, there was an unusually large number of low-grade medicines. Apart from a few that had yet to be discovered in this world, the medicines were all-inclusive. More than half of Jun Moxie's personal storeroom was filled to the brim. Even Fatty Tang was sent back to rest after all the outsiders had been dismissed. So, Jun Moxie found 2 trustworthy people to help him. And, they went all out in sorting out the medicines. Jun Dashao didn't have many people he could trust. In fact, there were only 4 of them in the entire Jun family. So, he didn't dare to trouble Grandpa Jun and Third Master Jun. As for the other 2, Jun Dashao wouldn't stand on ceremony with Kuer. His sister-in-law, Guan Qinghan, also had nothing to do. So, she was half-willingly and half-unwillingly recruited by Jun Moxie. After all, Guan Qinghan was the daughter of a Xian Qi aristocratic family. So, she was no stranger to these medicines. So, she could be considered a great help to Jun Moxie. At the very least, she was someone that Jun Dashao could trust. Jun Moxie sat in a place where the light couldn't reach. He was motionless like a wooden statue. He was frowning as he pondered. The 2 women thought that he was thinking about something. But, look at his frown. So, they didn't want to disturb him and let him think about it quietly. The 2 women tiptoed and talked softly. They were afraid that they would disturb his thoughts. So, they quickly followed Jun Moxie's instructions. They weighed the medicinal ingredients according to a certain amount. Then, they mixed them together and wrapped them into a bag. Then, they wrote down the serial number. Although this work wasn't too strenuous, it was still very tiring to carry it out for such a long period of time. Tiredness wasn't a big deal. But, the monotony was even more unbearable. The 2 women worked until midnight. Only then did they finish the 5 medicine lists that Jun Moxie had handed over. The two women finally stood up and took a breather. Although they didn't know why June Dashao wanted to do this, they saw that June Moxie wanted it so urgently. It must be something important. So, they didn't dare to be negligent. They rushed through the night and finally finished it. The two women stood up and looked at each other with a bitter smile. They gently hammered their slender waists. They felt sore and weak all over. But they couldn't help but praise themselves for being able to finish this work so quickly. They looked at each other and smiled. Then, they looked at June Moxie at the same time. Now that we've completed our task, why is this guy still frowning and thinking about the problem? What problem does he need to think about for so long? June Moxie's head was still slightly lowered. His face was heavy in thought. His brows were tightly knitted as if he had encountered a great mystery. He was so focused that he didn't even notice that the two women had quietly walked in front of him. Ah! This bastard! He lied to us and forced us to work here. It turns out that he has already fallen asleep here. This is so infuriating. Guan Qinghan observed for a long time before she finally came to this conclusion. She was instantly furious. If she hadn't been so close to him, she wouldn't have been able to hear his light breathing. He was actually snoring. This is too much. How can you be like this? We've been working tirelessly for the whole night. Not only did you not help us, but you even put on a quiet and thoughtful look and secretly slept. This is too much. Guan Qinghan was furious. She rubbed her sleepy eyes. The more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. She lifted her jade-like leg and kicked this unscrupulous and shameless guy's thigh. Bang! June Moxie fell down from the chair. He instantly woke up. He knew the reason when he opened his eyes. He stood up unhurriedly. He pretended to sigh and said, "This problem is really nerve-wracking. I've been thinking about it for the whole night, but I don't have any clue. This is so frustrating." Young Master June had a melancholic look on his face as he let out a long sigh, trying his best to act as if he was worried about the country and its people. It was extremely realistic, causing anyone who saw his expression to instantly feel that if he couldn't figure out this problem, the world would be destroyed. Guan Qinghan sneered. She pointed her slender jade-like finger at his chest. She stared at him with her beautiful big eyes and scolded, "June Sunshao, do you always drool so much when you're thinking about a problem?" June Moxie hiccuped. He rolled his eyes and said in disappointment, "I have this problem. Whenever I'm thinking about something or doing something, I'll be highly concentrated. It's because I don't care about anything around me. So, I don't have time to close my mouth when I'm thinking about a problem. Drooling, this is a very normal thing. What kind of bullshit is this?" Guan Qinghan was angry and amused at the same time. She was about to teach him a lesson with a cold face. However, she saw June Moxie roll his eyes. He suddenly smiled warmly, "Third uncle. It's already so late. Why are you here?" Guan Qinghan and little Ku were startled, and turned around to look. But there was nothing behind them. June Wuyi's silhouette was nowhere to be seen. The two women realized that they had been fooled, and turned around to flip out. Even the gentle little Ku was furious. But they were left gaping in astonishment as soon as they turned around. June Xie had disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye, and several bags of herbs had also disappeared along with him. This speed was simply godly. The two girls looked at each other in a daze. They recalled June Moxie's funny look. They suddenly burst out laughing at the same time. Ku'er pursed her lips and giggled. Her eyes were looking at Guan Qinghan. Her eyes were full of admiration and admiration. She said sincerely, "Young mistress, you look so beautiful when you smile. This is the first time I've seen you smile in these few years. You should smile more. You look so beautiful, this is the first time I've seen you smile in these few years." Guan Qinghan's body trembled. A trace of panic flashed in her eyes. Then, her face regained its cold expression. She sighed softly and said, "It's late. Go and sleep. She didn't say anything else. She silently walked towards her courtyard. Under the light, her back seemed so lonely and desolate. Yet, it was like a snow lotus on the peak of a snowy mountain. It was exceptionally cold and lonely. Standing proudly, the godly Jun Moxie hurriedly went into the Hongjun pagoda to hide. He saw that the two tigresses were about to flip out. How could he not hide? The reason why he had slept before was because he hadn't slept for 2 days and 1 night. He was really tired. Secondly, he wanted to recharge his energy to deal with the next round of alchemy. As for the ingredients and formulas that he had picked out, Jun Moxie had already rummaged through the alchemy books to find the 5 types of pills that he could refine with his current cultivation. Chapter 302. 2 minutes in 1. Sorry for the delay. Both the mysterious Yang pill and the minor Yin pill were nourishing medicines that could be used by men and women. They could be refined with ordinary herbs and belonged to the most common type of medicine. Even ordinary people would not have a problem taking them. But from the gathering Qi pill onwards, they were high-grade medicines that Xian practitioners and martial artists could use. The gathering spirit pill, also known as the devil's heart pill, when taken during cultivation, the user's mental strength would be highly concentrated, and the user would be fully immersed in cultivation. This was how Du Ju avoided most of the possible situations of Qi deviation. This function sounded simple, but in reality, it was not a trivial matter. It was definitely not easy to obtain, and there was no market for it. Martial artists could be unafraid of external things, and they could be unafraid of pain. But the biggest obstacle was the devil's heart. Very few people were unafraid of it. Who knew how many high-level martial artists were attacked by the devil's heart when they were trying to break through, resulting in a lifetime of tragedy? The higher the cultivation, the more severe the devil's heart's backlash. But with this devil's heart pill, it would basically eliminate the possibility of what happened to Du Ju. This was like holding a life-saving talisman in one's hand. If this devil's heart pill were to spread, it would definitely cause a huge uproar in the Xian continent. The bloody strife that such a small pill could cause would be extremely tragic. Even if it was not as tragic as the fight for the level 9 Xian Dan, it would not be much different. The 100 herb pill, as the name suggests, was an elixir that specialized in curing all kinds of poisons. Except for some strange poisons that would kill upon contact with blood, and mixed poisons, the 100 herb pill was almost non-toxic. The journey to Tian Fa was long, and there were countless poisonous insects, miasma, and ferocious beasts along the way. This 100 herb pill was an essential medicine, and it was definitely a great safeguard for the army. So, Jun Moxie chose it first. As for the meridian unblocking pill, Jun Moxie gave it another name, 10 years pill. Because, according to his experiments, after taking this meridian unblocking pill, perhaps due to the difference between Xian Qi and internal energy, it could not open the meridians of a Xian practitioner, but it could increase the cultivation of Xian Qi by about 10 years. And this increase in cultivation of Xian Qi would never disappear. In other words, this kind of medicinal pill was able to forcibly raise a profound practitioner's battle prowess. Moreover, it was a miraculous medicine that could raise a profound practitioner's battle prowess by a large margin in a short period of time. If they had this along with the inner devil pill, the strength of the 300 guards that Jun Moxie had personally trained would definitely rise to a whole new level in an instant. Of course, with his second level of the art of fortune, there were still some dawn that he could refine, but the rest were mostly facial nourishing dawn, spirit cleansing dawn, and the like. Although they all had their own uses, to the current Jun Moxie, they were not urgently needed, and were definitely not his first choice, so he chose to ignore them for now. At this moment, the most important thing was to increase the strength of the entire Jun family. Sitting cross-legged in the pagoda and facing the simple and unadorned furnace of good fortune, Jun Moxie circulated his energy to calm his excited emotions. As his emotions calmed down, the originally turbulent flow of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune slowly turned into a stream of calm water. Suddenly, he felt his mind become exceptionally clear. "Hey!" Jun Moxie shouted in a deep voice. His hands drew a circle in the air, and with a dazzling speed, he quickly pinched out several strange hand seals. What was strange was that every time he pinched out a hand seal in the air, a strange hand seal would appear in the air and fly into the furnace of good fortune one by one, boom. The flame of primal chaos, which had been slowly burning under the furnace of good fortune, suddenly burst into flames. In a split second, the jet-black flames sprang up and enveloped the entire furnace of good fortune. At the same time, Jun Moxie raised his hand and pointed his index finger straight at the furnace of good fortune. With a loud bang, the furnace of good fortune began to spin in the air. Then, a seven-colored brilliance appeared on the body of the furnace of good fortune, reflecting countless strange patterns. Suddenly, all the patterns disappeared, and the seven-colored brilliance disappeared. The furnace of good fortune was still spinning in the air, but with a buzzing sound, the lid of the furnace flew into the air. Jun Moxie's empty right hand waved, and a bag of medicines fell into the furnace. In an instant, the entire space was filled with a rich medicinal fragrance. The fragrance disappeared as soon as the lid of the furnace of good fortune fell, and the flame of primal chaos rose sharply. Then, Jun Moxie's outstretched finger that was pointing at the furnace of good fortune was wrapped in a pitch-black flame. Jun Moxie felt the spiritual energy in his body surge out of his fingertips like the opening of a great river. Almost at the beginning of the process, Jun Dashao, who had been smooth sailing all this time, finally began to complain for the first time today. Oh my god, is this alchemy or is this blood extraction? This feeling is simply the terrifying taste of being sucked dry in a split second. Refining a small alchemy pill actually requires such a high intensity and large amount of spiritual energy. And this is only refining the most basic and common alchemy pill. If I were to refine a precious alchemy pill with a higher starting point, wouldn't I directly die from exhaustion? This is too exaggerated. Damn it, I have read The Journey to the West. Look at how easy it was for the Taishang Laojun to refine alchemy pills. All he had to do was stroke his beard and flick his horsetail whisk. Then, an immortal pill came as a breeze. Moreover, it was the kind that could bring one back from the dead, make one immortal, and become an immortal. But why is it so difficult for me? I only want some ordinary stuff that can heal injuries, cure poisons, and increase my cultivation by a few years. Is there a need to suck my soul dry like this? Jun Moxie grumbled in his heart. But his spirit and hands did not dare to be negligent. He did his best to maintain the stability of his mind. He allowed the spiritual energy in his body to surge out like a river. After a long time, bang! The furnace of good fortune let out a loud sound and fell back to the ground. The black chaos spiritual flame also returned to its original color and continued to burn slowly. As for Jun Dashao, he was completely exhausted. He did not even have the strength to move a finger. He panted heavily and felt the spiritual energy from the Hongjun Pagoda crazily surging into his meridians. He felt as if he had run 5 kilometers with a huge rock on his back. He wished he could stick out his tongue to catch his breath. If not for the huge amount of spiritual energy from the Hongjun Pagoda, the exhausted Jun Dashao would have fallen into a deep sleep. The exhaustion of the body was secondary. The most important thing was the exhaustion of the soul. If it was not replenished in time, it would lead to serious consequences. After a long time, he finally felt the spiritual energy in his meridians fill up a little. Jun Moxie struggled to crawl up and congealed some spiritual energy. The furnace of good fortune opened with the help of the spiritual energy. Jun Moxie stretched his head out to take a look. His hands and feet started to tremble. Inside the furnace of good fortune, besides a small pile of ashes, there was nothing else. I'll fuck your uncle. Hitman Jun was flabbergasted for a long time. He then cursed angrily, I don't believe that I can't refine a pill with my talent. It's just an ordinary pill, and I still have to refine it a second time. He sat cross-legged, began to absorb the spiritual energy, and began to operate the art of good fortune. Then, crap! Hitman Jun couldn't believe his eyes as he looked at the result of the second attempt. It's actually, okay, I'll fight you. Let's see who's the best between us. The cycle repeated itself, bang. Crap. I don't believe that I can't refine this trash. If 10 times isn't enough, I'll refine it 100 times, 1,000 times. He cursed angrily. Then, he began to vent his anger. Then, he sat cross-legged, began to operate the art of good fortune, and the cycle repeated itself. The unbearable cursing and the hysterical venting began once more. He didn't know how many times he had done it, but finally, wahahaha. I'll fuck your sixth uncle. You trash, I'll turn you into ashes. Why aren't you changing? Ah. You bastard. I won't recognize you if you change your attitude. Fuck, motherfucker, you're evil, can you be more evil than me? Humph. Inside the Hongjun pagoda, Jun Dashao looked like a beggar. No, Jun Dashao's appearance was worse than a beggar's. His face had turned green, and he looked like a zombie. His whole body was trembling as if he was having an epileptic fit. His chicken claw-like black hands were clutching a sparkling and translucent pill. He was laughing wildly, jumping up and down as if he had gone mad. Jun Imo-sia clenched his teeth as he looked at the pill in his hand. He had an impulse to throw it on the ground, and then stomp on it a few more times. Damn it! You've made me suffer so much, and you've been torturing me for so long. But, if I were to disregard you after I've succeeded, and then trample you to pieces, how satisfying would that be? How satisfying would that be? How comfortable would that be? Jun Dashao steeled his heart, but in the end, he couldn't bear to do it. Crap! My brain would have been short-circuited if I'd really crushed it. I'll let you be awesome. Wait until I've swallowed you into my stomach. My intestines will move, and I'll digest you. You'll become the best punishment for you. As he continued to mutter curses to himself, he carefully took out a small jade bottle. As if he was serving his ancestor, he carefully placed the rubbish in his mouth into the bottle. In the end, there was only one left in his hand. Without thinking, he swallowed it into his mouth. He chewed on it a few times, and only swallowed it down after chewing it to mush. It seems like the effect is not bad. Jun Moxie savored the taste of the mysterious yang pill in his mouth. His face was full of aftertaste. Looking at the medicinal ingredients that he had brought in, Jun Moxie's face turned bitter. How long would he have to practice for? Counting the ingredients of the mysterious yang pill, there were originally 100 bags. Now, there were only 78 bags left. In other words, he had refined it 22 times. He didn't know if it was luck or coincidence that he had succeeded once. And he had produced exactly 30 pills in one try. If he wanted to equip the entire private army, he would need to succeed at least 10 times. And 10 times of success meant that he would have to try many more times. Fuck. I'm going all out. Jun Moxie clenched his teeth and plopped down on the ground. Once again, he began to accumulate his spiritual energy. It had to be said that Jun Moxie's endurance was really strong. It had definitely exceeded the limits of a normal person's tenacity. Other people would not turn back until they hit the wall. But Jun Moxie did not turn back even after hitting the wall. Even after hitting the wall, he did not turn back. He was a classic example of someone who would hit the wall, but still want to smash the mountain. With Jun Moxie's current spiritual energy and the assistance of the second level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, after activating the furnace of good fortune and the flame of primal chaos, he could at most complete one round of refining. After that, the spiritual energy in his body would be completely exhausted. It would not be an exaggeration to say that not even a drop would be left. What kind of uncomfortable feeling would a Xian or warrior feel when their Xian qi and internal energy are drained? It would be similar to the feeling of having one's head heavy and feet light, cold hands and feet, and having one's mind muddled. Moreover, these symptoms would be magnified by 10 or 20 times. This statement was absolutely not an exaggeration. In addition, one would clearly feel that one's soul would tremble in the depths of one's sea of consciousness. In fact, it would feel as if one's soul would fly away and scatter at any time. It would be an absolutely hair-raising experience. It was also a stroll in front of the gates of hell. An average person wouldn't be willing to try a second time after experiencing this kind of tempering. Moreover, they would feel pain and lingering fear every time they thought about it. Even a person with strong willpower would reach their limit after trying 3 or 5 times. However, Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao had succeeded 22 times in his first attempt. The most awesome thing was that the first 21 attempts had been a failure. Moreover, looking at his determination, it seemed that he would continue to refine if he didn't succeed after 22 attempts. Who would dare to say that they were more tenacious than the hitman Jun? More demonic? Not to mention the purity of the spiritual energy, even the tempering of one's mind was no small matter. It was an absolutely unimaginable matter. The current situation was that he had finally succeeded in refining this pill. Moreover, Jun Dashao still wasn't willing to give up. In fact, it seemed as if he was going to use up all the medicinal ingredients in one spurt of energy, such an abnormal degree. Even if a certain alchemy grandmaster in the cultivation world saw it, he would immediately pass out with his eyes rolled back. This was a monster, or perhaps it should be said that he was an evil being. Jun Moxie naturally didn't know about this. Even if he knew, he wouldn't have cared. He was in high spirits as he continued to refine pills. Then, he would put the refined pills into a small jade bottle with a miserly expression on his face. Each jade bottle could hold 100 pills. One bottle was full. Then another bottle was full again, and then another bottle. Perhaps it was because of his previous failures. The current Jun Moxie was unexpectedly very skillful in refining pills. Looking at this posture, it seemed as if he was the reincarnation of the old lord. Perhaps it was because of his previous failures. Now that he had experience, the failure rate was very low. Basically, he would succeed in refining pills every 3 times. However, this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that Jun Moxie's spiritual energy recovery speed was getting faster and faster. In the beginning, he would be as tired as a dead dog after refining a furnace. Now, he would only need to take a few heavy breaths after refining a furnace. Then, he would completely recover after meditating for a while. Then, he would be able to start the next furnace. This speed had increased by more than 2 or 3 times. The efficiency could be said to be quite high. This also meant that through this round of pill refining, not to mention the final number of pills that could be formed, there would be great benefits to Jun Moxie's consciousness and his spiritual energy. Moreover, it was a huge and far-reaching benefit. Especially after experiencing those 21 consecutive failures. The condensation of Jun Moxie's spiritual energy and the strength of his consciousness had already grown to an extremely high level. At the moment when he finally succeeded, the sudden burst of ease and strength showed that Jun Moxie had made great progress in this round of pill refining. However, Jun Moxie himself didn't know any of this. He didn't even pay attention to this aspect at all. Jun Dashao was in a transcendent state of selflessness, thoughtlessness, and thoughtlessness. He was completely focused. Right now, his mind was filled with only one thought: refining pills. Refining pills. Refining pills, refining pills without a care for anything else. There's no time, time is too tight, I have to make the best use of every moment to refine pills. His expression, from the initial excitement of seeing the pills, gradually became calm and natural. Then, it became as if it was only natural, and then it became stupefied. In the end, it was as if he was having a normal meal, as if he was eating the most ordinary cabbage, and it was the cheapest kind of cabbage. The kind that could be bought with a dime for a few caddies. I'm sick of eating it. When it was time to refine the meridian connecting pill, a huge discovery finally woke Jun Moxie up. Fuck. The spiritual energy in my body actually supported me to refine 3 batches of pills in a row, and I actually didn't feel tired. What's going on? Is it because this pill doesn't consume as much spiritual energy as the previous ones? That's not right. These pills are of the same level, and this meridian connecting pill is the most difficult to refine in this level, and it consumes the most spiritual energy. I remember when I was refining the first batch of pills, wasn't I already exhausted before I could persist to the end? Why is it now? Jun Moxie's thoughts moved, and he immediately restrained his spiritual energy to look inside his body. With one look, he was immediately shocked. In his meridians, the spiritual energy that was originally in a formless and shadowless state, when he broke through the first layer, he gradually felt it. When he broke through the second layer, it had already turned into a faint mist. Now, although it was still in the shape of a mist, it was much thicker than before. In fact, it even had a slight feeling of solidification. Could it be that I've only refined pills for a while? How did my spiritual energy increase so quickly? How could Jun Moxie know that he was only refining pills? With this method of refining pills, every time the spiritual energy was exhausted, he would only replenish it. And at that time, the pure spiritual energy from the Hongjun Pagoda would flow into his meridians without any obstruction, and the transformation would be completed in an instant. At the same time, when it recovered, it would more or less improve on the original foundation. And he had already gone through this cycle who knew how many times. Moreover, every single time, he would go all out from the start, tossing and turning with an overload. It could be said that if he did not have the Hongjun Pagoda, Jun Dashao would have died long ago. But now, not only did he have the Hongjun Pagoda, but his body was also inside the Hongjun Pagoda. This brought him great benefits, benefits that could not be described with words. His current strength had more than doubled compared to before he entered the Hongjun Pagoda to refine pills. If measured by Xian Qi, the current Jun Dashao had at least reached the middle stage of Yu Xian, and could break through at any time. If using the art of unlocking heaven's fortune as an example, he had already reached the middle stage of the second level. He only needed one more big step to reach the peak of the second level, and he would be able to break through to the third level. And now, it had been less than half a month since he had broken through to the second level. In other words, during this period of time when he was refining pills, he had completely immersed himself in it, and had raised his cultivation by 2 levels. A whole 2 levels of improvement to an ordinary person was something that they would not even dare to think about. Xian Qi cultivation, under the silver level, was relatively fast to advance. But once one broke through to the silver level, every step would be more difficult than the last. Any martial art was like this: the higher the level, the harder it was to break through. Just like the 2 Tian Fa kings of the Tian Fa forest. Their innate talents far surpassed the ordinary people, and they could be said to be blessed by the heavens. However, they had been stuck at their bottleneck for decades, and there was no sign of a breakthrough. In these decades, they had also been improving every day, but they had not been able to break through. And once Jun Moxie had the possibility of helping them break through, they would crazily follow him. This was a clear indication of the difficulty of breaking through. It was definitely not something that an ordinary person could imagine. Jun Moxie let out a long sigh, and his mind was in a state of ecstasy. He felt an inexplicable sense of relaxation, and instantly felt a sharp pain in his head. Ever since entering the Hongjun Pagoda, Jun Moxie had long forgotten how much time had passed. He also did not know how long he had been here. But at this moment, his head was incomparably painful, and his whole body was powerless. Although his qi was still abundant, his body had no strength left. At the same time, the strong feeling of hunger in his stomach made Jun Moxie feel some pain. How long does it take to not eat to have this kind of feeling? Moreover, I haven't drunk any water. Looking at the ground beside him, Jun Moxie was once again shocked by himself. Rows and rows of jade bottles were neatly arranged. Counting them, oh my god, Jun Moxie sucked in a breath of cold air. This is really refined by me? Fuck. I'm so abnormal, I'm really not a human. 5 bottles of mysterious yang pills, 3 bottles of minor yin pills, 6 bottles of demonic heart pills, 15 bottles of 100 solutions pills, and 8 bottles of unblocking meridians pills. Fuck. This brother is really too great, too awesome, too handsome, there are no adjectives that can describe this brother's strength. These pills are all strength. Once these are given to the 300 bodyguards, to what extent will their overall combat strength increase? This is definitely an extremely terrifying matter. Jun Moxie praised himself as he hurriedly rushed out of the Hongjun Pagoda. If I don't go out, such a great person like me will starve to death. But Jun Moxie did not know that he had originally planned to refine pills for the entire night, but had instead gone crazy and stayed in the Hongjun Pagoda for 3 days and 3 nights. Moreover, no one knew about this, and this almost caused a huge uproar. The young master of the June family had once again disappeared from his own home without any reason, and this time, there was no trace of him, and he had disappeared without a trace. This was also the longest time he had disappeared. The solitary eagle had just left, and June Moxie had also disappeared. What did this mean? He could not help but think too much. The June residence was somewhat chaotic, and everyone was in a hurry. Something big has happened. This is bad. Chapter 303. June Jean wasn't worried on the first day. After all, June Moxie's strength wasn't weak, and he was brimming with confidence. He even said that he could protect himself even if the 8 great masters were to attack him, so what could possibly happen? Maybe this guy is hiding somewhere and working hard to make a great-grandson. But on the second day, June Jean and June Mo Xia couldn't help but become anxious. What's going on? He hasn't been home for 2 days and 2 nights, and this has never happened before. Could it be that he's having too much fun? On the 3rd day, he couldn't keep his cool. He claimed to be able to protect himself from the 8 great masters, but this information hasn't been verified yet. What if June Jean became anxious and issued an order, and the capital was once again under martial law? At the same time, the June family's secret forces were mobilized, and Hai Chen-feng's Jinyang gang was also mobilized. For a time, the ruffians and the army joined hands, and the scoundrels and generals joined hands. Jun Wui personally commanded the search, and every suspicious place was searched several times. Jun Wuyi's complexion was unusually ugly, and this search was exceptionally vicious and merciless. Anyone who doesn't agree with me will be executed first. Jun Jean brazenly said, "Damn it, even if the sky falls, I'll hold it up. Search carefully for me. If anyone dares to disobey, I'll kill them. If anyone dares to make a sound, I'll break their legs, and then they'll lose their heads." The most miserable place was the Spirit Fog Lake, and the most miserable place was the Ni Chong Pavilion. There was no doubt about it. Lady Yu was said to be performing her zither skills on a tour, and all the major brothels were scrambling to hire her, but she hadn't even completed half of her tour when Jun Wui sent his army to detain her. Reason? Why do I need a reason to detain you? The Ni Chong Pavilion had a relationship with the second prince, and almost everyone was well aware of this fact. But this time, it was said that the second prince had sent his chief strategist, Mr. Fong Bo-wen, to plead for leniency, hoping that the Jun family would give him some face, and even release Lady Yu alone. However, Jun Wuyi's reply was only one word: get lost. It was said that the highly respected Mr. Fong had a seizure on the spot. It was said that the highly respected Mr. Fong Bo-wen was so angry that he went into a fit. Young Master Jun, who was dressed even worse than the beggars, appeared in his own courtyard. Like a reincarnated hungry ghost, he ran like a stray dog, like a fish that had escaped the net. With a speed close to the speed of light, he ran into the Jun family's main kitchen. This caused the little lowly cooker, who had been crying for the past few days, to jump in fright. Before she could turn around in surprise, she saw that her young master had disappeared once again. The 2 women followed the direction in which June Moxie had disappeared, and when they arrived at the main kitchen, they were shocked. Young Master Jun's clothes were ragged, his hair was disheveled, his face was pale, and he had 2 dark circles under his eyes. His hands were like chicken claws, and his boots were so shabby that even his toes could be seen. Even though he was in such a sorry state, he did not slow down in the slightest. He moved as fast as lightning, grabbing a steamed fish with his left hand and shoving it into his mouth. Then, he pulled out a complete fish bone from the other side of his mouth. There was a big lump of beef in his right hand, and he kept sending it into his mouth without chewing at all. In front of him was a bowl of soup. Occasionally, he would choke and let out a strange cry. Then, he would lower his head, and like a whale sucking in water, he would smash his head into the big bowl. On the ground was a pile of bones, fish bones, and meat bones. The chubby chefs in the kitchen felt as if they had been struck by lightning, and stared blankly at this young master who looked like a reincarnated hungry ghost. Their fat faces twitched, and they couldn't believe that he could eat so much. Damn it! Even a pig, no, even a wild boar would not be able to eat so much. And it can't eat so fast. This eating speed. I can't take it anymore, I'm getting dizzy just by looking at it. Guan Qinghan hurriedly rushed over with Kuer. She was very angry in her heart. You debauchee brat. Don't you know how to inform your family first? You've been gone for 3 days, and there's no news from you. Do you want me to die from anxiety? She had the mentality of an elder sister-in-law, and wanted to teach her younger brother-in-law a lesson. But when she arrived, she was dumbstruck and couldn't say a word. This table manners. Miss Guan's eyes widened, and she covered her small mouth. Her face had an expression as if she had seen a ghost. This was the first time that the iceberg beauty Guan Qinghan, who had always been as cold as ice, had shown such an expression on her face. Kuer's delicate and charming mouth was wide open. She had a startled expression on her face, and it seemed as if 2 big duck eggs could be stuffed into her mouth. Finally, Jun Moxie sighed in satisfaction and smashed his head down. The remaining half of the soup disappeared with a whoosh, and revealed the smooth and white bottom of the pot. He lifted his leg and kicked away the various bones that had almost buried his ankle. Jun Moxie let out a satisfied burp, and took out a small and exquisite flying knife. He then started to pick his teeth in a leisurely manner. But when he turned his eyes, he saw that everyone's expression was extremely strange. He couldn't help but ask in bewilderment, "Why are you all looking at me like that? Don't tell me there's a flower growing on my face." Everyone was speechless. Everyone was speechless for a while, and they were still speechless for a long time. It would be strange if they could say anything in the face of such thick skin. "What have you been doing these past few days?" Guan Qinghan was the first to come to her senses. She pretended to be dignified as she interrogated him. "I've been these past few days." "Aha!" Jun Moxie immediately guessed what had happened. He shook his head with a sigh. "I've been very busy. I've been so busy that I'm about to die. How can I be like you? You eat and sleep, sleep and eat. Other than solving your physiological needs, you don't care about anything else." What kind of words were these? Guan Qinghan's face was frosty, and she said fiercely, "What did you say?" "What did I say? Haha, I said, big sister-in-law and Kuer are getting more and more beautiful. Every time I see you, I don't know what to say. Especially big sister-in-law, you're not only beautiful, but you're also getting younger. When I see big sister-in-law in the future, I really don't have the nerve to call you big sister-in-law. If others don't know, they'll definitely think that you're my younger sister." Jun Moxie hurriedly tried to salvage the situation, and spouted a bunch of flowery words and nonsense. Hearing this, Guan Qinghan and Kuer were stunned. They knew that out of 10 of this mischievous brat's words, at least 8 of them were fake. But hearing him praise their beauty still made them feel a little happy. They found it both funny and annoying at the same time, and they stared at him speechlessly. After a long while, Guan Qinghan's pretty face was still taut. She said, "When third uncle comes back, you'll have a good time." After saying that, she pulled Kuer and swaggered away. Guan Qinghan was right. She wasn't exaggerating in the slightest. When Grandpa Jun and Third Master Jun received the news, they immediately rushed back. Facing Jun Dashao, they immediately unleashed a torrent of thunderous anger. Jun Dashao's hair had almost turned silver, and his hair was covered with spittle. The thunderous rain was so intense that Jun Dashao didn't even have the time to show off. After enduring the barrage of curses with great difficulty, he took out a set of pills. One mysterious yang pill, 1 devil's heart pill, and 1 10 years pill. Facing the 2 big shots who had just rained down curses on him, he still had to crazily flatter them. "And this thing is indeed a good thing. But it can't be eaten too much. At the very least, it's not suitable to be consumed in large quantities. This mysterious yang pill can be stored for 10 days. Taking it frequently as a health supplement is not a problem. But the 10 years pill is a one-time deal. Only the first pill is effective. Eating too much of it is useless, it's a pure waste." Jun Zhantian and Jun Wei pinched the pills with their fingers. The expression on their faces was very incredulous. After all, the effects that Jun Dashao had described were too miraculous. Even the two of them looked at Jun Moxie with a gaze that said, "Who are you trying to fool? These pills can increase one's cultivation by 10 years. That's nonsense." The two of them had the same expression. However, under the protection of Jun Moxie, the two of them swallowed the pills. They finished circulating their energy and stood up. However, they had an almost crazed look on their faces. Feeling the 10 years' worth of cultivation increase within their bodies, the two of them looked at Jun Moxie with green eyes. This kind of expression made Jun Moxie think of the Dark Mountains, a pack of wolves. Such a good thing. How many more of them do you have? Hand them all over to this old man. Hurry up and don't make things difficult for this old man. Do you hear me, you little bastard? This was Grandpa Jun's roar. Grandpa Jun's face was full of excitement. He directly lost his composure. Not only did he speak incoherently, he even grabbed his grandson's clothes, lifted him up, and shook him in the air. He was like a dried salted fish being hung on the eaves of a house. Grandpa Jun was very greedy. Once he opened his mouth, he said in a very overbearing manner, "You see, your grandfather opened his mouth first. Of course, you have to take care of him first. I don't need a lot. Just give me 100 or so bottles. No matter how many there are, you can give them all to your grandfather. Look at him, Jun Wei, Third Master Jun is so generous. He only asked for 100 or so bottles. Do these two of them think that it fell from the sky? Or that they picked it up from the ground? This was a genuine immortal spiritual recipe." Jun Moxie groaned and fainted. This is too shocking. Even if they were picking up dirt from the ground, they would still need to bend down and use some strength. Moreover, this is a pill. Brother, this is not cabbage that can be found everywhere. How could the two of them allow Jun Moxie to pretend to be dead? From the looks of it, with this elixir in front of them, even their grandson and nephew, the only heir of the Jun family, would have to step aside. Grandpa Jun bluntly grabbed Jun Sunshao's cheeks and pulled. Third Young Master Jun's face instantly turned into a pig's head. As for Third Master Jun, his methods were relatively gentle. He only pinched his nephew's manhood. There were no repercussions, only a purple patch, pretending to faint in front of the two of us. You've really misunderstood your little brat's heart, you've made a mistake in your calculations. Jun Dashao screamed as he woke up. He wanted to cry but had no tears. I really don't have any more. I don't have any more even if you beat me to death. Please let me go, who are you trying to fool? I saw you take out a few bottles just now. Isn't it a waste to leave such a good thing in your hands? Quickly hand it over. Are you looking for trouble? Grandpa Jun was very straightforward. He grabbed his grandson's ankles and lifted him up. Then, he shook him violently. It was as if a naughty child had grabbed a ripe jujube tree. The only difference was, one was upside down. Jun Dashao was unable to endure the abuse. So, he finally confessed. Let go. I can't take it anymore. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you, okay? Only then did Grandpa Jun put down his hand. Both father and son glared at Jun Imosia like a tiger watching its prey. Jun Dashao crawled up. The first thing he did was to slap his own face. Who asked you to show off again? Look, something happened, right? He knew that this thing was very tempting. In front of this elixir, grandfather, grandson, uncle and nephew had no feelings. Then, he thought about it again. Something is wrong. I made this thing for the Jun family. So, why am I being treated like a traitor? All kinds of tortures were brought out. The only thing missing was a tiger stool and chili water. He slowly took out a bottle of mysterious yang pills, a bottle of demon heart pills, a bottle of 100 solutions pills, and a bottle of 10 years pills. He placed them on the table. Then, he spread out his hands. That's all, I don't believe it. Take more, the two of them roared at the same time. I really don't have any more. Jun Dashao's face was full of sincerity. Grandpa, this is enough for 100 people. My master only gave me this much. He thought, what do you want this stuff for? It's just to increase the strength of my trusted subordinates. But, some people aren't that reliable. I'll keep the rest for myself. What? You have enough for 100 people? The two of them found it hard to believe. Even half of such a precious elixir was rare and hard to find. In fact, Third Master Jun was only joking when he said that he needed more than 100 bottles. A bottle of this kind of elixir could only contain 3 to 5 pills. So, how could they not be dumbfounded when they heard Jun Dashao say that these unremarkable bottles contained enough for 100 people? It's true. My master used a lot of his strength to refine these elixirs. Otherwise, how could I have sent people to collect so many herbs? But, my master said that his vitality was greatly damaged this time. So, he won't be able to recover without 3 to 5 months. Moreover, the main ingredients for refining elixirs have been used up. So, he won't be able to refine any more elixirs for a long time. So, these are the only ones left. Be careful when you use them. Jun Dashao naturally had to exaggerate a little. After all, wouldn't he be forced to refine elixirs every day if this father and son pair knew that these elixirs could be mass-produced? The two of them felt that this was quite reasonable. Only an expert like Imo Xie's master could refine such a divine elixir. So, it was even more reasonable that they couldn't refine more. After all, wouldn't it be child's play if these elixirs could be mass-produced? The two of them reached out and pulled Jun Moxie to the side. Then, they reached out to grab the elixirs. Mine! Mine! Bang! Bang, bang, bang. It was obvious that the two of them were fighting over the ownership of the elixirs. Jun Moxie slipped out of the hall, ignoring the shameless and unscrupulous father and son pair. Anyway, no matter how much they fought, nothing would happen to them. They could do whatever they wanted. He had better go about his own business. Intentionally or unintentionally, Jun Dashao arrived at Guan Qinghan's courtyard. Guan Qinghan was sitting quietly under the flowering tree in the courtyard, quietly admiring the flowers in front of her. Her expression was tranquil, and no one knew what she was thinking about. She clearly heard Jun Moxie's footsteps, but she still didn't have any intention of turning around. What's the matter? An indifferent voice asked. It's nothing much. Just a few elixirs. They're pretty good. Try them and see if they taste good. Jun Moxie laughed dryly. Oh? Guan Qinghan slowly turned around. Lang Lang looked at him indifferently. What kind of elixirs? Just a few elixirs that I got. They're very effective. Do you dare to eat them? Jun Moxie almost blurted out the 2 words in his heart. He thought about it, but he didn't dare to say it. Why wouldn't I dare? Afraid that you'll poison me? Guan Qinghan smiled unexpectedly. Immediately, Jun Moxie's eyes widened. The frosty beauty suddenly broke into a smile. It was breathtaking, shocking, and unexpected, although you, Jun Moxie, Jun Dashao, are still somewhat unbearable, but after this period of time, I know that you're not the kind of person who relies on despicable means. Besides, I'm still your sister-in-law. Guan Qinghan reached out and took the 3 elixirs from Jun Moxie's hand. Shaoyin pill, Inner Demon pill, and 10 years pill. It was the quota for women. She glanced at Jun Moxie indifferently. Without the slightest hesitation, she raised her head and swallowed the elixir. Jun Moxie glared at her. Just as he was about to tell her to wait until she was practicing, Guan Qinghan had already swallowed the elixir. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Looking at Guan Qinghan swallowing his elixir without any doubt, Jun Dashao suddenly felt a wave of regret. If I knew that this sister trusted me so much, why didn't I concoct an aphrodisiac? What a blunder. Bah, this must be the thoughts of the former Imo Xie. I'm so pure, How could I be that kind of person? Guan Qinghan had just swallowed the elixir. She was about to ask what kind of elixir it was and what kind of effect it had. Suddenly, she felt a burst of gentle heat gushing up from her dantian. Her entire body felt warm and comfortable. Then, the Xian energy in her body started to circulate on its own. It was like the waves of a great river crashing against her meridians. The warm current in her dantian was constantly emitting new hot energy to fill her meridians, and transform into exceptionally pure Xian energy. The elixir that Jun Moxie had given her had the miraculous effect of enhancing her strength. Guan Qinghan was incomparably shocked to discover this. She couldn't help but feel a little regretful for her own recklessness. This was a critical moment. She was at the peak of Silver Xian, and was about to break through to Gold Xian. So, she could feel the enormous medicinal power of the elixir after taking the elixir. Breaking through to Gold Xian was imminent. But, she was outside at this critical moment. There was no one to protect her, and there was only her brother-in-law by her side. Why didn't this brat explain it clearly? How could this thing be so careless? I thought it was just some ordinary candy. However, Guan Qinghan didn't have the time to think about it. The enormous and extremely pure medicinal power of the elixir had already filled her limbs and bones. It was steadily advancing towards the Gold Xian realm. She felt a burst of discomfort all over her body, and her consciousness started to blur. Guan Qinghan's cultivation was still too low. She was only at the peak of Silver Xian. She was even inferior to Jun Daxiao. With Grandpa Jun and Jun Wui's Tian Xian cultivation, they could naturally consume this 10 years pill without any qualms. They could also endure the impact of the elixir and use it to increase their cultivation. They wouldn't even feel any difference. That was because their foundation was deep enough. However, Guan Qinghan couldn't. There was a difference of more than 10 levels between her and these two men. She had only cultivated for 10 years. But now, she had suddenly gained 10 years worth of cultivation. It was almost the total amount of Xian Qi she had ever cultivated. Moreover, it was far purer. Moreover, she had never experienced Jun Moxie's cruel training. How could she persevere? She had already consumed the Devil's Heart pill. Otherwise, she would have gone berserk long ago. Guan Qinghan felt as if her entire body was about to explode. Her consciousness was also gradually blurring. She couldn't help but feel a sense of despair. Could it be that this life is going to end in such an inexplicable manner? Her brother-in-law, Jun Moxie, had finally gotten better. He had even given her a few heaven and earth elixirs. It was clear that Jun Moxie had already turned over a new leaf. Moreover, he was also quite concerned about her. However, she had never expected that her body's endurance would be far too weak. She would actually die from the nourishment of these heaven and earth elixirs. Guan Qinghan couldn't help but feel a trace of amusement. There was also a faint feeling of reluctance in her heart. If it had been a few months ago, death might not have made her feel anything. It might even be a kind of release. But now, where did this trace of reluctance come from? The corners of Guan Qinghan's mouth curled into a melancholic smile. She silently said in her heart, "Goodbye." Then, she closed her eyes. However, just as she closed her eyes, she opened them in shock. Her eyes were filled with horror. Guan Qinghan suddenly remembered that, with her status, the most appropriate thing to say at the moment of her death was, "I'm coming," and not, "Goodbye." Goodbye? Who am I going to say goodbye to? Who am I unable to let go of in my heart? Guan Qinghan didn't have time to think further. Suddenly, a warm palm gently but firmly touched the middle of her back. Then, a cool and refreshing strength penetrated into her body. Guan Qinghan's blurry consciousness instantly became clear. It felt as if she had fallen into a cold pond on a hot summer day. She felt a burst of bone-chilling pleasure, then, a pure power slowly flowed out from that warm palm, and flowed into her meridians. It guided the violent flow of energy that had been triggered by the elixir, and methodically passed through her meridians. That flow of energy could be said to be extremely violent. She had been completely unable to control it. But it had become obedient as soon as this warm power appeared. It seemed as if it would obediently go wherever this warm power wanted it to go. A loud bang resounded in Guan Qinghan's mind. She could clearly feel that an indescribable meridian had suddenly opened up. And her consciousness had suddenly entered into a whole new realm, a whole new world. With the help of this hand, Guan Qinghan had finally broken through to the Gold Xian realm in one fell swoop. The one who had lent a helping hand was naturally Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao. Guan Qinghan was panic-stricken. She didn't have any experience. However, Jun Moxie understood that the elixir he had refined was strong. But its attribute wasn't too overbearing. Moreover, it had the Devil's Heart pill as a supplement. So, it wouldn't be fatal. Even if Guan Qinghan lost consciousness, she would be fine after lying down for a few days. Then, she would be able to advance her cultivation. However, this was a great opportunity for him to take advantage of her. Jun Dashao wasn't a gentleman. Wouldn't it be a pity to let this opportunity slip by? Helping others is the basis of happiness. He gently placed his palm on Guan Qinghan's back. Although they were separated by 2 layers of clothing, Guan Qinghan's cultivation was at the peak of Silver Xian. So, she had considerable resistance to cold and heat. So, she naturally wouldn't wear too much. This led to the young Master Jun's palm touching her back, and he immediately felt a soft and smooth sensation. It was as if he was caressing a piece of flawless jade. It was so comfortable, so soul-pleasing, so... Chapter 304. Jun Dashao's mind was whirling with a lot of muddled thoughts. Then, he remembered to circulate his internal energy to help. Guan Qinghan slowly woke up. Her entire body felt comfortable, as if she was about to soar. She couldn't help but feel overjoyed in her heart. I've finally broken through to the Gold Xian realm. This means that I've finally gained considerable strength. I'm no longer a useless person who needs to be protected everywhere. The impulsive feeling of joy had finally calmed down. Guan Qinghan then felt that the palm that had helped her so much was still on her back. It was just that the palm was no longer channeling his internal energy to her. But she could still feel the warmth of that palm. What a big and warm hand. Who was it that helped me? That kid. Jun Moxie doesn't have such a high level of cultivation. She turned her head to look out of curiosity. She saw that her brother-in-law, Jun Moxie, was sitting cross-legged behind her with his eyes closed. His palm was still in the same posture, and was still stuck on her back. How is this possible? It's really him. Guan Qinghan felt a wave of dizziness. Since when did this kid have such a high level of cultivation? Could it be, but it seems that he's not moving at all. He must have expended a lot of energy to channel his internal energy to break through to the next stage, right? No wonder he can't open his eyes now. It seems that he's unbearably tired. Just as she was thinking about this, she suddenly felt that the palm on her back moved a little. Then, the 5 fingers moved a little. She suddenly felt a numbing itch. This kid had actually pinched her back, and then moved a little. Guan Qinghan's entire body stiffened. She turned her head to look. She saw that the hateful guy's eyes were still closed. But his face was full of enjoyment. The corners of his mouth were curled up in an extremely wretched smile. This was her brother-in-law's most wretched side in the past. But wasn't his previous behavior just an act? How could it be? That palm moved again. It went all the way down. How could Guan Qinghan not know that this kid was taking advantage of her? Ah! Guan Qinghan cried out in alarm. She jumped up as if her butt was on fire. Without thinking, she slapped him on the face almost instinctively. After a crisp, paw sound, she followed up with a ruthless kick. Then, she stomped her feet. Her face was bright red, and she was dazed for a while. Suddenly, she covered her face and ran away in shame. Young Lady Guan's martial power had increased exponentially, and her speed could be said to be extremely fast. In fact, her white shadow had flashed, and she had disappeared without a trace. She arrived in her boudoir, and her heart was still beating like a drum. She was angry and embarrassed at the same time, and her face seemed to be on fire. She angrily stamped her feet, and 2 drops of clear tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. She was in a daze for a long while. Then, she suddenly threw herself down on the bed, and covered her head with her hands. Then, she covered her head. A faint choking sound was heard. Jun Moxie was startled. He hadn't even opened his eyes when he received a slap on his face. Jun Dashao was infuriated after that crisp slap. What's going on? He was about to open his mouth to ask. Suddenly, a strong surge of energy surged from his lower abdomen. Jun Dashao didn't even have time to feel the pain. His entire body was sent flying. It was as if he was riding on the clouds. He flew no less than 30 feet away. Then, he fell into the flowering shrubs with a plop. It was no less than 30 feet. Jun Dashao's small body couldn't be considered as a tall and sturdy man since his rebirth. But, he still had the standard figure of a man. So, his weight was at least 50 kilograms. But, he had been sent flying by a kick from a beautiful woman. His leg strength was very strong. Or, could it be that he had become so strong after taking the medicine? Medicine can't be taken indiscriminately. He crawled out in a daze. There was no one in front of him. He thought for a long time before he realized what was going on. He couldn't help but feel a little mad. I admit, although I did have the intention to act like a hooligan, and I did act like a hooligan a little. But my original intention was to help you. But, in the end, no matter what, how could you do such a thing without even informing me? That's too unreasonable. Although I was indeed the one who acted like a hooligan first, but the young Master Jun defended himself in his heart for a while, but he felt that he was in the wrong more and more, as if this slap and this kick were completely justified. I deserve them. He couldn't even absolve himself. How could he not be depressed? Young Master Jun was left speechless. He had given pills to Old Man Jun and his third uncle, and they had almost skinned him alive. Then, he had given pills to Guan Qinghan, and had even helped her to make a breakthrough. He had thought that his beautiful sister-in-law would give him some commendation, or at least some affirmation. Perhaps she would even say that she would be gentle. But, who would have thought that he would eat a fried dumpling, and then get kicked in the stomach? Fortunately, it was his stomach. What if it was a little lower? Wouldn't it be a complete loss? Jun Mo Xia wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Then, he ran away in a crestfallen manner. He didn't forget that his lower body was really heroic. If he had kicked it, he wouldn't have lost everything. At the very least, he wouldn't have had to go to Tiannan. He would have had to carry his second brother and practice frog jumping at home. His reputation would have gone up in smoke. With a single command from young Master Jun, all 254 men of the Jun family who were in the midst of their high-intensity training, whether they were in the midst of sparring, resistance training, or being steeped in medicinal water, all stopped what they were doing at the same time. In an instant, they split into 2 groups and stood neatly in front of Jun Mo Xia. 2 neat phalanxes. Everyone looked full of energy. Remember, when you were training, I said that I wanted to have 2 teams. The 2 strongest teams. One would be the Heaven Destroyer, and the other would be the Spirit Devourer. These 2 teams are not only the strongest, but also the backbone of my strength. The Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer teams will accompany me to dominate the world and rule the continent. And the members of these 2 teams will be chosen from you. They will be the nightmare of the entire world. They will also be the strongest warriors of the entire continent. Jun Mo Xia paced back and forth slowly. His sharp eyes swept across the faces of each and every one of the men in front of him. Everyone's breathing became heavy, and their eyes were filled with a sincere desire. To become the strongest warrior, to become the nightmare of any enemy. This had always been their greatest pursuit. The greatest desire of their lives. At that time, I also said that you are not worthy. You are not worthy. So, I don't even know your names. First, I am not interested. Second, you are not worthy of me knowing. Jun Moxie said slowly. There was a strange rhythm in his slow voice. It was as if there was a heavy pressure that caused the entire world and even the flow of time to slow down. For days later, you will carry out the first mission that I have issued. The members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer teams will also be chosen after this mission. They will become the true strength that belongs to me, Jun Moxie. Those who survive this mission will be the members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer teams. They will also embark on their own path of killing. In the future, when the entire continent hears their names, they will tremble. Jun Mo-sia stared at them and suddenly said in a low voice, "But, this operation is different from the previous ones. It is not the same. This time, we are going to select the real iron-blooded team members. It is also going to be a clash of life and death. I will clearly tell everyone that this operation is extremely dangerous. Every one of you has a 90% chance of death. Even saying that it will be a 9 out of 10 chance of survival is a conservative estimate. Now, if you want to back out, you can take a step back. I will not force you. It is not shameful to think about your own life. Anyone can leave on their own. I, Jun Moxie, or the Jun family will not make things difficult for you." The autumn wind whistled. Not a single one of the 254 people moved. In fact, they did not even blink. This is the only chance to leave. There is no turning back. I repeat, this mission is very likely to end in death. There is no return. This is your last chance. Jun Moxie said Lengleng. Still, no one moved. Jun Moxie nodded lightly and suddenly said in a stern voice, "If you want to become a member of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer team, take a step forward." Boom! The 254 people took a step forward in unison. They used so much force that the entire Jun family's courtyard seemed to tremble from this orderly and forceful stomp. Very good. Taking this step forward is a one-way road with no return. There is no room for regret. This is also the path of the strong. It is the path of the iron-blooded men. Let me say a few words to you. Jun Moxie thought for a moment and suddenly raised his head. His eyes were like lightning as they swept across everyone. Everyone's hearts tightened and they could not help but straighten their backs. They only heard Jun Moxie say in a low voice, "The path of a man is only one step. Life and death, glory and splendor do not look back. The blood of a man is as hard as iron. The will of a mountain of knives and the sea of fire is indomitable. The tears of a man are the most expensive. Alone against 10,000 enemies, never retreating. Broken bones, flowing blood, life and death, never looking back. This is the ballad of a man. Only iron-blooded men are qualified to sing it. Only real men can understand it." Jun Moxie clasped his hands behind his back and said leisurely, "May all my brothers be men. Everyone, take the first step of a man. From now on, accompany me to laugh at the wind and clouds and roam the world." The entire place was filled with a solemn silence. But everyone's expression became excited. These heroic ballad of a man made everyone feel as if their blood was boiling. It was as if every pore on their body was bursting with energy. Pairs of ox-like eyes emitted a fiery glow. What a good ballad of a man. The path of a man is only one step. Life and death, glory and splendor do not look back. As long as you identify your goal and take a step forward, it will be the direction of your life. This is the persistence of a man, the persistence of no regrets. The blood of a man is as hard as iron. The will of a mountain of knives and the sea of fire is indomitable. This is the unyielding nature of a man. The tears of a man are the most precious. Alone against 10,000 enemies, never retreating. Think about it. The sun is setting in the west. The ground is covered in blood and corpses. His comrades have all left. He is the only one left to face the enemy's million-strong army. How tragic is that? How can you retreat? His bones were crushed and his blood flowed freely. He refused to turn back no matter what. That is what a man should be. The two captains took the lead, and the 254 warriors passed by Jun Mo Xia one by one. Then, they received their share of the pills. Then, they clasped their hands, and strode away. In the blink of an eye, 254 people had each received their own pills. They were still in two neat square groups, and there was not the slightest bit of chaos. These pills are rare elixirs that seize the fortune of the heavens and earth. I have gone through many difficulties and spent tens of millions of silvers to get them. Now, these pills are all in your hands. Take them all together. These pills can increase your Xian Qi cultivation by 10 years. Everyone, do not let me down. Jun Moxie stood with his hands behind his back and said solemnly. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. In the Xian continent, they had heard of some rare items. 10,000 years old lingji, ginseng, knotweed, and other magical herbs that could increase one's Xian Qi cultivation. But in these tens of thousands of years, there had never been a pill that could increase one's Xian Qi. Not to mention seeing it with their own eyes, they had never even heard of it. But today, not only did their young master obtain it, he even handed over these priceless treasures to them. In a split second, everyone's heart was filled with a deep sense of gratitude. Warriors die for those who understand them. Everything was said without words. Following the command of the two captains, the 254 people stepped forward at the same time. Each of them stood a few feet away from each other. They raised their heads and swallowed the 3 precious pills. Then, they sat down cross-legged with a solemn expression. They circulated the Xian Qi in their dantian and digested the pills. Jun Moxie stood in front of the team. His expression was calm and indifferent, but his hands were already holding onto flying daggers. He was on full alert. At this moment, even though they were in their own home, in their own territory, they did not dare to be careless. A total of 200 people were advancing at the same time. Such an action was absolutely unprecedented. So, Jun Moxie had to be on full alert. The third master, Jun Wuyi, was standing on a tall tower far away from the training ground. He was watching from afar, and the corners of his mouth twitched as he muttered, I knew that this brat would have kept a lot of them for himself. Sure enough, I guessed right. He has 254 of them at once. Grandpa Jun snorted twice and said, Mo Xia can use this medicine. But you cannot use it carelessly. If news of this gets out, it will be very dangerous for Mo Xia. An ordinary man is innocent, but his treasures arouse his own ruin. Even for my Jun family, if something were to happen to this rare elixir, we would be consigned to eternal damnation. Wuyi, this matter must be handled with extreme caution. I would rather bury these elixirs in the ground than expose their true origins. I will not allow anything to happen to Mo Xia. Do you understand? I understand. Jun Wuyi nodded his head and said in a deep voice, only those who are willing to die for our Jun family can take this medicine. If there is even the slightest doubt, they will not try it. It is better to miss it than to take the risk. Well said. Grandpa Jun's deep eyes looked down at his grandson, who was standing upright and unafraid. With a strong sense of love, he added, in addition, the timing of taking the medicine must also be accurate. Moreover, the person taking the medicine must not know that it was due to the use of the elixir. Do you understand how to demonstrate this? Jun Wuyi nodded his head and said slowly, Jun Wuyi was crippled for 10 years. His body was crippled, but his heart was not crippled. By chance, he created a method that uses his own strength to boost the strength of others. That's all. Grandpa Jun's eyes narrowed. If that's the case, then you are the one at risk. Jun Wuyi smiled indifferently and said, Father, don't worry. I know what to do. This way, no one will come looking for Mo Xia because of this matter. Then you must be very careful. Grandpa Jun nodded his head and did not say anything else. His eyes were cold and dignified as he said, I want all the information on the 254 people below. This included every bit of their qualifications, experiences, people, things, good friends, and people they still had contact with, as well as their origins, families, parents, children, neighbors, or even, the beauties they were dating, and even, their lovers in the brothels. Investigate carefully, and if you found anything wrong, immediately get rid of it. Even if it is groundless, you must not let it go unjustly, understand? Yes. Grandpa Jun's words were resolute and decisive. It was obvious that he was issuing a military order. Especially the last 4 words, rather than let it go unjustly, were even more decisive. Jun Lui also responded solemnly like a subordinate receiving an order from his superior in the army. Although it was only 1 word, both of them understood that this was no different from issuing a military order. When Jun Moxie's elixir came out, Grandpa Jun Zhantian's first thought was that this matter could cause a sensation and bring about trouble. Therefore, Grandpa Jun's current arrangement was to prepare for a rainy day. For the sake of his grandson's safety, Grandpa Jun was willing to disregard everything. Similarly, for the sake of his only nephew's safety, Third Master Jun was willing to bet everything, even his life. Only a few people who had reached the Gold Xian realm were able to easily inherit the pure Xian Qi and fuse it with their own Xian Qi. However, more than 95% of the strong men had fallen into a state of extreme pain. They were only silver Xian cultivators. But, under the stimulation of the powerful medicinal power, their blood vessels were expanding, and the muscles on their bodies were bulging up. Their skin was shining with a silvery light. That was the silver Xian Qi rapidly flowing and surging in their meridians. These people were also silver Xian cultivators, but their foundations weren't very strong. So, such a huge amount of pure Xian Qi had suddenly burst out in their bodies. And, each and every one of them had to bear an enormous amount of pain. However, they had to endure this pain themselves. Only by enduring it themselves would they be able to reap the greatest harvest. This was also a kind of tempering and reference for their future breakthroughs. Several of the weakest Xian Qi cultivators were sweating profusely at this moment. Their skin had turned blood red, as if something was about to break through the surface of their skin. Their black faces were distorted, and it was clear that they were enduring a great deal of pain. Every stage of Xian Qi cultivation requires a breakthrough. For example, a breakthrough from silver Xian to gold Xian, a breakthrough from gold Xian to Yu Xian, and so on. This is a kind of qualitative breakthrough, and within a single realm, there is a difference between the strong and the weak. For example, almost all of the strong men who were in the midst of a breakthrough were silver Xian or above. However, their Xian Qi cultivation was not particularly strong, and most of them were inferior to Guan Qinghan. Although Guan Qinghan's family was not big, it was still a family with a long history, and she had been cultivating since childhood. This was why Guan Qinghan was able to achieve a breakthrough after taking the 3 elixirs. Even without Jun Moxie's help, at most, she would only need to sleep for 1 more night. However, almost all of the strong men had not cultivated enough Xian Qi, and it was difficult for them to control the newly obtained 10 years of pure Xian Qi. Moreover, they were different from Guan Qinghan. If they were unable to control the newly obtained Xian Qi, apart from the failure of this breakthrough, it was very likely that they would not be able to make any progress for the rest of their lives. Fortunately, all of them had experienced Jun Moxie's hellish training more than once, and their willpower was tempered far beyond that of ordinary people. Although this feeling was difficult to bear, they were still able to endure it. So far, no one had cried out, but the sound of teeth gnashing could be heard continuously. Apart from the sound of teeth gnashing, there was not a single groan of pain. On top of the tower, Jun Zhantian's eyes gradually became dignified, and he said, "These 200 people are actually real men. Such hard bones. Even this old man is moved." Jun Lui smiled, and his eyes were also full of praise. Finally, a ray of silver light that had almost solidified transformed into a faint golden light. Although the golden light wasn't dazzling, it was exceptionally tangible. This was the sign that one of them had finally overcome this difficult hurdle, and had entered the higher realm of gold Xian. The second, the third, as the gold Xian light continued to flicker, dozens of men succeeded in breaking through. After going through the most painful period, what replaced it was endless joy. They did not immediately stand up, but instead closed their eyes, and slowly adjusted their breathing, feeling the huge changes in their bodies. They guided the unprecedented strength in their bodies, and slowly circulated it through their meridians, trying their best to adapt to the changes in their bodies as quickly as possible. Then, a large silver light flashed, and soared into the sky. The entire courtyard of the June family seemed to have turned into a bright silver. More than 200 men had broken through at the same time, and the radiance of this moment was so dazzling that Jun Zhantian and his son, who were on top of the tower, felt a little dizzy. Among these people, the weakest has already reached the middle level of the Silver Xian realm. Most of them are at the peak of the Silver Xian realm. There are also a few who have advanced to the Gold Xian realm, and the 4 with the highest cultivation are already at the peak of the Gold Xian realm. Grandpa Jun sucked in a breath. If such a team were to go to the battlefield, they will not go to the battlefield, they are no longer soldiers, Jun Wui said lightly, they will only fight for Mo Xia in their entire lives. Going to the battlefield, for them, is a pure waste. I will not allow such a waste. Mo Xia once said that the weakest of these people must reach the peak of the Earth Xian realm. At that time, I only thought that he was talking big, but now it seems that it is not impossible. You must know that the strongest of these people was only at the 8th level 3 months ago. Now, they have actually advanced to the peak of the Gold Xian realm. This is amazing progress, it is simply heaven-defying. Jun Wui said slowly, and his eyes flashed with excitement. The weakest is at the peak of the Earth Xian realm, doesn't that mean, more than 200 Tian Xian experts have formed an army? My god, even if the Silver Blizzard City and the Shui Hun Manor join forces, they would not be able to come up with such a large force, my god. Grandpa Jun was left speechless, and the hand that was stroking his beard unconsciously pulled out a strand of his snow-white beard. Chapter 305. 1st of August, first update. Requesting a guaranteed monthly ticket. After a while, all 254 of them finally finished upgrading. Not a single one failed. They stood up one after another and quickly returned to their original formation. They looked at Jun Moxie, their eyes filled with gratitude and fanaticism. Boom! 254 of them knelt down at the same time and kowtowed to the ground. A loud sound rang out, shaking the surroundings. Thank you, young master. More than 200 of them shouted in unison. I will give you 2 days. Use the cruelest method to adapt to the changes in your bodies, the changes in your Xian Qi, the use of your moves, and the cooperation between everyone. On the 3rd day, go to the armory to collect your weapons. Jun Moxie slowly nodded. Leng continued. In addition, this matter is our top secret. No one is allowed to leak it. If anyone violates this, all of you will be punished. No exceptions. Yes. We would rather die than leak it. Up in the tower, Grandpa Jun's eyes were filled with gratification and worry. He slowly said. Mo Xia's methods are strong, his methods are sufficient, and he also has the charisma to lead his troops. Using both carrot and stick, he is indeed a genius. However, he is not suited to lead an army. Why? Father, Mo Xia leads his troops, and his discipline is strict to the point of being strict. This is the way of a general, and he can lead the strongest legion. So, why does father say that he isn't suitable to lead troops? Jun Wui was very puzzled. Mo Xia's heart is too ruthless. Grandpa Jun snorted and sighed. Mo Xia can lead an army of experts, but he is not suited to lead ordinary soldiers. What he said just now may seem ordinary, but did you pay attention to the last sentence? If anyone violates this, all of you will be punished. No exceptions. Grandpa Jun sighed. When Mo Xia said those words, there was no hesitation or emotion. I can guess that if any one of these 254 people were to leak the news, Mo Xia will do what he said. There will be no exceptions. That doesn't mean anything, right? Since he can cultivate this batch, he can cultivate the next batch. Jun Wui said disapprovingly, "Father, you and I are both generals. You must know the importance of military discipline in the army." Although the punishment was harsh and cruel, it was undoubtedly the most important method to maintain military discipline. Under such an important matter, how could he be soft-hearted? Even if it really happened, it's only natural. That's why you can only be generals and not commander-in-chief. Jun Zhantian sighed, "A general can only have 10,000 subordinates at most. Dispatching them in an emergency was also considered wartime. But the ordinary personal guards were also the disciples' soldiers, and any general could only have a quota of 10,000 people. He knew his own men well, and they were well trained. Nothing would go wrong. For example, your bodyguards and MOC's troops. However, as a commander, he had to command the entire situation. He could easily have hundreds of thousands or even millions of troops under his command. If he was still so harsh, I'm afraid, he would kill his own troops. Armies are stationed together, and there are always conflicts and friction. And the men in the army are mostly hot-blooded and impulsive. An army of 100,000 is stationed for a night, and there will be at least hundreds of conflicts. If you and MOCA used the method, I'm afraid these people would have been beheaded." Jun Zhantian sighed, "A general must be strict, and a commander-in-chief must be magnanimous. Being a general and being a commander-in-chief are two completely different things. You are too unyielding, and MOCA is too ruthless. These are both your strengths, but at the same time, they are also your weaknesses." Jun Zhantian said deeply, "MOCA may be ruthless, but it is enough to protect himself. But your unyielding attitude will only cause you to suffer. This is the difference between the two of you." Jun Wui stood quietly, thinking about his father's words. He did not move for a long time. On the field, the cruel training that risked one's life had already begun. This time, the intensity of the training was clearly more than 10 times that of the previous ones. Jun Moxie returned to his courtyard and took a deep breath. Everyone had advanced, and he was the only one left. He had not even tasted the pills he had refined. He had just advanced to the middle stage of Yuxian. If he were to take this pill, would the effect be better? Jun Moxie did not know. But he knew that if there was even the slightest effect, he would have earned it for free. So he did not hesitate to take out a 10 years pill and swallow it. Jun Moxie did not take the Devil's Heart pill at the same time. The Devil's Heart pill would certainly be safer, but at the same time, it would also mean that he would lose an opportunity to cultivate his mind. This would also have a negative impact on the improvement of his mental state. Feeling the sudden abundance of qi in his dantian, Jun Moxie was delighted. It was indeed useful. He settled his mind and entered into a state of forgetfulness. The power of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune surged through his meridians like a raging river. The next day, the imperial edict was issued. Jun Wui was appointed as the general of Southern Heaven City, commanding an army of 20,000. He was to set out for Southern Heaven City to assist the aristocratic families in quelling the Xian beast tide. Apart from Jun Wui, the emperor had also named a few people from the aristocratic families. Among them, Jun Moxie was impressively on the list. Apart from him, there were also a few acquaintances from the Meng family, Murong Qianjun and Murong Qianli from the Murong family, and 3 heroes from the Dugu family. There were also people from the Song family on the list. But contrary to Jun Moxie's expectations, Li Yuran was not on the list. In other words, Li Yuran did not have a part in this trip to Southern Heaven City. How could His Majesty leave such a scourge in the empty capital? Jun Moxie did not believe that the emperor could not see through Li Yuran's ambition. Since he could see through it, then there was a problem in keeping him. Since the descendants of the aristocratic families were on the list, they would definitely send experts to protect them. Although His Majesty's imperial edict did not ask for anything, it had imperceptibly transferred a portion of the experts from the aristocratic families. After receiving the imperial edict, Jun Wui immediately rushed to the military to handle the various procedures. Although His Majesty had requested to set out on the same day, how could the entire army be ready in 1 or 2 days? They would need at least 5 days to prepare. The army had yet to move, but the provisions had to go first. Old Sir Jun Zhangtian's martial order blew like a hurricane through the provinces and counties along the way, arranging for them to prepare all the necessities. At the same time, the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Revenue, and the Ministry of Military Affairs worked together in a swift and decisive manner. In just a short day, all the necessities for the army had been allocated. Such efficiency was enough to make anyone dumbfounded. There had been cases of soldiers going to war before, but at that time, which one of them did not run back and forth several times to prepare the supplies? Even when they went to war, there would often be issues such as supplies not being in place, rations not being supplied in time, and so on. There were a lot of annoying things that could not be compared to this time. But no one was dissatisfied. Who was Jun Wui? Although he was currently unemployed at home, he had always been a legend in the Tianxiang Empire's military, an idol. The Blood General's reputation was still illustrious even after 10 years. Now that he had finally returned, the entire military was in a state of jubilation. Especially his old comrades and subordinates, they were extremely excited. Whether it was the Dugu family or the Jun family in charge of the military, Jun Wui was given the green light all the way. Not a single civil or military official dared to raise a single objection on this matter. The officers and men in the army were looking forward to Jun Wuyi's command. They were looking forward to this famous great general's command. They were looking forward to Jun Wuyi's command. Although the army had yet to set out, their morale was already high. In the palace, are you wondering why I sent Jun Moxie out, but left Li Yuan behind? His Majesty wasn't playing chess this time. Instead, he was holding a cup of tea, and was sipping it. His face was full of smiles. Yes. Jun Moxie has no desire for power, but Li Yuan is obviously full of ambition. I don't understand why your Majesty left Li Yuan behind, and let Jun Moxie go. Mr. Wen sat opposite to the Emperor, and spoke in a somewhat puzzled manner. Li Yuan has needs, so he has weaknesses. He's easy to control. Moreover, he won't be able to make any big waves under my watch. I want to see if this person can be used by me. Therefore, I've left him behind this time so that I can see more clearly. His Majesty smiled gently. As for Jun Moxie, he doesn't have any desires. This kind of person can leave as he pleases, and he can stay as he pleases. He's like a wild crane in the clouds, and it's impossible to control him. Therefore, I've let him go this time. Whether he lives or dies in the midst of the Xian beast tide will depend on him. I still don't understand. If he has the temperament of a wild crane in the clouds, why must he? Mr. Wen frowned. A wild crane in the clouds is nothing to be worried about. But, he has such a powerful force behind him. That's the most worrying thing. A cold light flashed in His Majesty's eyes. He sighed. Great merit can shake the Lord, and great influence can attract the wind. Mr. Wen sighed, but didn't say anything. There should be some movement on the second brother's side, right? His Majesty suddenly smiled in a strange manner. Yes. The crossbows will reach the southern suburbs of the capital in the early morning of the fourth day. Mr. Wen sighed again. Very well. I won't allow any of these crossbows to wander outside. His Majesty gently placed his palms on the table. He spread his fingers, and fixed his eyes on them. It seemed as if he was admiring the perfection of his slender fingers. Rest assured, Your Majesty. Mr. Wen replied, why didn't Your Majesty issue the decree directly? I would have had no choice but to cripple my second son if I had done so. His Majesty smiled bitterly. He looked into the distance and murmured, it would have been a great shock to the imperial court, the world, and even my harem. Undercurrents are surging in all directions. They can't withstand such a shock. Mr. Wen lowered his eyes, but didn't say anything. He had thought that His Majesty didn't want to do so because of his father-son relationship. But, it seemed that he was very wrong. He laughed at himself in his heart. The thinking of a Xian cultivator and an emperor are very different. Send a letter to the Blood Sword Hall. Tell them that no one is allowed to escape from the Zhao family of Jiangnan, the trade union of Jiangnan, or the second brother's men. This matter must be done cleanly. His Majesty exhaled deeply. The second brother wanted to hire assassins, but he didn't know where to start. The Blood Sword Hall came to him on their own initiative. But the second brother didn't suspect anything. My son's wisdom has disappointed me. Mr. Wen remained silent. It wasn't that he didn't suspect anything. But, who would suspect that an emperor who ruled over the 4 seas could secretly control such a sinister and bloody team? Even if he said it out loud, most people wouldn't believe him. Chapter 306. If the second prince, Jun Moxie, or anyone else were to know about this, they would certainly understand why the second prince would always send assassins from the Blood Sword Hall to carry out a mission, and would always send someone who was only a hair's breadth away from completing the mission. The Blood Sword Hall was an extremely famous assassin organization within the Tian-Xiang Empire, and even the entire Xian continent. The mastermind behind the scenes was this was extremely unexpected. But if one thought about it carefully, perhaps this was the most normal and logical thing to do. Was it not? Why was an assassin organization known by many of the upper echelons of the Tian-Xiang Empire able to act so openly and unscrupulously? They were able to have close contact with many of the aristocratic families of the imperial court, and even the royal family. This kind of behavior would not be strange if it were in a weak country where martial power was respected. However, Tian-Xiang was a country with tyrannical military strength and a high degree of centralization of power. Moreover, the emperor of the Tian-Xiang Empire was a rare and outstanding person. So, how could he allow such an unscrupulous assassin organization to exist in his country? Assassinating the royal princess, and slaughtering the bloodline of important ministers, all of this was too much of a trifling matter. Moreover, this trifling matter was far more than that. For example, the assassination of Princess Raimu was a well-known assassin organization in the Tian-Xiang continent. So, the existence of Yi Guhan was admittedly a secret and also a taboo. But, how could such a secretive organization like the Blood Sword Hall not be able to find out about the existence of a powerhouse like Yi Guhan? But, they still only sent 2 gold Xian assassins. In the face of a target that had Tian Xian as a bodyguard, would gold Xian assassins be of any use? Would there be any meaning? It was a pity that the second prince was still buried in the dark. He was even sent away by a *T. Your information is wrong. Perhaps, for the rest of his life, this second prince would never understand. From start to finish, everything he had done had been used by his father as an excuse and tool to clean up the bureaucracy, reorganize the court, and even purge the harem. His exploitation was too thorough. Even if the hitman Jun, who was also a top-notch assassin, were to find out about this matter, he would also be convinced by the emperor of the Tian-Xiang Empire. Harem. Meng He, tell me honestly. Did something happen to her? Are you sick? It was a graceful and elegant lady in a yellow robe with a winged crown on her head. She was the current empress and also the biological mother of Princess Raimu, Murong Shou. No. No, I'm fine. Everything is normal. Why would you say that, mother? Princess Raimu refused to admit it. If Imperial Mother knew about Yi Guhan's current state, Raimu really didn't know what would happen next. She could only deny it. Normal? You child, you can't lie since you were young. Once you lie, you will stutter. The Empress smiled gently and looked at her daughter lovingly. These days, you are sometimes worried, sometimes secretly laughing. At night, you often cry. Your tears wet your pillow and quilt. Do you still think that this is normal? Mother. Princess Raimu acted like a spoiled child. Would your daughter lie to you? I really don't have anything strange. Could it be? The Empress smiled and pinched her daughter's little nose dotingly. Perhaps you have taken a fancy to a young man from a certain family? Imperial Mother, what are you talking about? Princess Ling Meng shouted, her face red with embarrassment. But in her heart, she was hesitating. Should I take this opportunity to tell Mother about Jun Moxie? At the thought of that person, Princess Raimu couldn't help but blush and blush. The Empress looked at her daughter's expression. How could she not know what had happened? Didn't she have such a strange body of a little girl in the past? Her daughter had finally grown up. You little girl, do you know which family's son is from? How could he be favored by my precious daughter? The Empress looked at her daughter teasingly. Mother. Princess Raimu twisted her waist and hesitated for a while. Finally, she decided not to say what was in her heart for the time being. Raimu was not a fool. How could she not know that June Moxie's attitude was thought-provoking? She was afraid that this guy didn't have a good impression of her at all. If she said it rashly, she might ask for a snub. However, in the heart of the princess, there was a lot of dissatisfaction. You pretended to be a playboy a few years ago. Any girl wouldn't be moved by you. Even if you tried to please me, why would I care about you? Now, I don't have a problem with you, but you, a lecher, put on airs again. Humph. Little girl, don't be shy. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. I won't force you. Haha, Mengther, if you have a sweetheart, you must tell me as soon as possible. Do you understand? Otherwise, you're not young anymore. If your father decides to bestow a marriage to you on a whim one day, it would be troublesome if there were any objections at that time. The Empress stroked her daughter's hair and said dotingly. Yes, I understand. Princess Raimu snuggled in her mother's arms. She couldn't help but think of Yi Gohan and Uncle Ye's miserable situation for so many years. She suddenly felt a lump in her throat and wanted to cry. I don't know why, but I've been on tenterhooks for the past few days. I keep feeling that something bad is going to happen. The Empress smiled faintly and muttered to herself thoughtfully, what could happen? I always feel pain in my heart. Princess Raimu's heart tightened. She didn't dare to say anything. How is Uncle Yi now? And that damned enemy, he doesn't even let me visit Uncle Yi, the June family. June Moxie was speechless as he looked at the little girl who was baring her fangs and brandishing her claws in front of him. He was truly speechless. Because, I want to go too. Dugu Xiaoyi was holding Little White in her arms as she arrogantly announced. Elder sister, what are you going to do? Feed the Xian beasts? Are you going to help me or the Xian beasts? June Moxie rolled his eyes in a bad mood. Oh God, please spare me. I've been pestered by this little girl for the whole morning. You're the one who's going to feed the Xian beasts. I'm very powerful now. Even my 7 brothers are no match for me once I use my blade skills. I'm invincible under the gold Xian level. How can a mere profound beast do anything to this young lady? Dugu Xiaoyi proudly said, besides, Little White is still a level 8 Xian beast. Isn't he just like a puppy? If everyone is like this, then what am I afraid of? Killing 1,000 or 800 a day is just like playing around. Who knows, I might even be able to find a few more Little Whitey. Little White whimpered in dissatisfaction. How could such a high-level Xian beast be so easily touched? He rolled his eyes and looked at her, but he also knew that it was a very unwise move to reason with this mistress of his, so he ignored her and continued to sleep. June Moxie felt helpless. Big sister, how can you compare like this? Although Little White is a high-level Xian beast, he is still underage, okay? I shouldn't say it like that. It should be, just born. How could this be compared? Haven't you seen other Xian beasts? Even if I've never eaten pork, I've never seen a pig run. What nonsense are you spouting? I've never seen a pig run. Other Xian beasts? What's wrong with the other Xian beasts? When they see this young lady, they immediately become dispirited and don't even dare to raise their heads. The little girl said proudly. June Dashao's cheeks streamed with tears. That's right. How could a daughter of a rich family have seen a pig run? The ones you've seen are the lowest level Xian beasts that have been tamed by others. Big sister, don't make a fuss. You always carry your Little White every time you go out. He is a standard high-level Xian beast. Those Xian beasts in our Tian Xiang will certainly become dispirited when they see him. What does this mean? Here, Little White is very strong. But in Tian Fa, Little White is nothing. He's nothing. Jun Dashao earnestly tried to persuade her. Are you trying to fool a child? Little White is so powerful, but he's nothing. I want to go anyway. I must go, I must go. Duga Xiaoyi said rudely, my grandfather's 70th birthday is in 2 months. My grandfather fought on the battlefield in his early years, and got injured. So, his waist can't be exposed to the wind, and he can't catch a cold. I've heard that wearing the fur of a Xian beast, the snow ferret, will prevent one from getting sick. So, I'm planning to hunt a snow ferret for my grandfather's birthday. I want to show my filial respect to him. The little girl's meaning was that the snow ferret was already waiting for her there. So, she only needed to go there and take it. June Moxie almost fainted. Big sister, do you think that the snow ferret is a kitten that you're raising? Is it that easy to catch? That thing's level is even higher than your iron-winged panther. It's a level 8 Xian beast that's not only in name but also in reality. Even saying it's level 8 is a conservative estimate. In other words, that thing can evolve. Do you understand? During this period of time, the little girl's behavior was as gentle as water. So, June Moxie had almost forgotten about her previous domineering behavior. Now, it seemed that she had reverted to her old ways. No wonder people say that it's easy to change mountains and rivers, but hard to change a person's nature. So what? No matter how powerful it is, it's just a small ferret. What's the big deal? Dugu Xiaoyi waved her hand carelessly. She didn't take Jun Dashao's words to heart. She rolled her eyes, and instantly lowered her head to plead, Brother Mo Xia, take me with you. Isn't it just a matter of one more horse? Is that okay? No. There's no room for discussion. June Moxie didn't even think about it, and flatly refused. Isn't this a matter of one more horse? If something were to happen, wouldn't the Dugu family's hooligans skin me alive? Besides, I'm not a gentleman. If my bestial nature flares up along the way and I do something to you, that's not a big deal, but not a small one. Let me go, Brother Mo Xia, I beg you. Dugu Xiaoyi grabbed his arm, and acted like a spoiled child. No. There's no use in calling me brother. June Moxie snorted. He thought for a moment and added, there's no use in calling me husband either. In your dreams. Dugu Xiaoyi wrinkled her nose, stuck out her tongue, and said, Humph, if you don't take me with you, I'll go with my brother. Is that so rare? Don't tell me that I can't go to the southern sky city without you. Go ahead. June Moxie spread out his hands, as long as you don't follow me, then everything can be discussed. If your 3 brothers are willing to take you with them, it'll save me a lot of trouble. Help me thank them for sharing your burden. Chapter 307. But I want to follow you, hee, it'll be fun if I follow you. You're not a quiet person. So, the journey will be very interesting. What's the point of following those 3 stupid brothers? Dugu Xiaoyi saw that her trick was ineffective. So, she shamelessly pestered him again. June Moxie understood that the 3 brothers must have thoroughly rejected this girl's request. So, she came to pester him. Otherwise, why would this girl come looking for me? Let me tell you, there's no way. There's no door, and there's no window. June Moxie's heart was as hard as stone. He wouldn't agree no matter what. You'd better stay at home and accompany my sister-in-law. You can't go to that kind of place. Girl, you're risking your life, not going on an outing. I don't know if she's at home or not. But, she certainly won't be able to accompany me. Because, I'm also going to the southern heaven city, a cold voice said. June Moxie's back stiffened. He turned his head with difficulty, and saw that it was Guan Qinghan who had spoken. Guan Qinghan felt that something was wrong about this trip to the southern heaven city. Not many people knew about the Shuihan Manor's matter. But all the influential families of the capital must have gotten the news. And the imperial palace was no exception. But, at this time, Jun Wui and Jun Moxie were called to go to battle. What's the meaning of this? Even if Jun Wui is leading the troops, why is Jun Moxie also involved? Therefore, Guan Qinghan was thinking a lot. And, she was thinking the most. What if the Shuihan Manor finds an excuse to make things difficult for Jun Wui and Jun Moxie after we arrive at the Southern Heaven City because of me? What should I do? This uncle and nephew's temperament is worse than the others. How could the two of them resist the might of the Shuihan Manor if they were to fall out with them? However, as long as one of them brought up this matter, based on Jun Wui's and Jun Moxie's temperament, they would definitely fall out with each other. At that time, how would it end? These two people, especially Jun Xia, had always been a fearless person. What couldn't he do? Therefore, Guan Qinghan had to go, even if she had to die. Even if you don't bring me along, I will go alone. If there was nothing else, that would be the best. Everyone would return together. But if things got out of hand, Guan Qinghan would at least be a bargaining chip. If all else failed, he would rather sacrifice himself in exchange for the safe return of Jun Wui and Jun Moxie. However, he couldn't let this uncle and nephew know of his thoughts. Otherwise, they would rather break his legs than let him go. The third uncle was a bit better, but his brother-in-law, Jun Moxie, was evil. He would definitely imprison him. Guan Qinghan was well aware of this point. Oh my God, sister-in-law, my dear sister-in-law, why are you causing trouble at this time? Why are you looking for me? Do you think I'm easy to bully? Jun Moxie scratched his head. He seemed to be going crazy. Even if you want to go, don't look for me. I don't have the final say. You can go and look for third uncle. It's your business whether you have the final say or not. But, it's my business whether I go or not. Guan Qinghan faintly looked at him. Then, she pulled Dugu Xiaoyi's arm and left. Before leaving, Dugu Xiaoyi winked at Jun Moxie to show off. Show off? As long as you don't cause me trouble, I won't mind. Jun Moxie's mouth twitched. In the afternoon of the same day, Jun Xia and his 200 or so bodyguards dispersed, and silently disappeared from the Jun residence. At night, Grandpa Jun's burly body stood in the courtyard. He said a few words to the dozens of black shadows in front of him. Then, the dozens of people dispersed and disappeared without a trace. Grandpa Jun sighed and asked Old Pang, when will they arrive? Old Pang thought for a moment and said, probably tomorrow night. Grandpa Jun frowned. Old Pang, prepare the masks and night clothes. Old Pang's eyes revealed a smile. In Jun Wui's courtyard, Third Master Jun clasped his hands together. The paper in his hand turned into powder. He smiled and muttered, tomorrow night. Night fell. The long night passed quickly. The sun rose and set. It was dusk. The sun set and the moon rose. Time flew by in the blink of an eye. Zhao Wuji had already forgotten how many times he had whipped his horse. It had already been 2 days since he had abandoned the boat and landed on the shore. 2 days of non-stop galloping. Ever since they had set out from Jiangnan until now, they had been on the road without stopping for 9 days. And after rushing day and night, the harvest was also very obvious. They had saved 2 days from the scheduled time, 2 whole days. With these 2 extra days, he could avoid a lot of accidents. This was conceivable. This made him feel a little excited. In these 9 days, whether it was by land or by water, nothing unexpected happened. The journey was smooth. It was so smooth that it made him feel happy, but also a little unbelievable. It was really too smooth. But because of this, Zhao Wuji's heart did not relax. On the contrary, the string in his mind was getting tighter and tighter. This situation was too abnormal. It was so smooth that it was surprising. Ever since Zhao Wuji received this job, as the head of the Zhao family, he understood what this business represented and what it meant. But it was too late for regrets by the time he understood. Because the production of those things had already begun by the time he understood. Those things were what the second prince wanted. As a prince, what did he need these things for? Moreover, they had to be made in secret. Zhao Wuji knew that he had unknowingly boarded the second prince's pirate ship. Moreover, he couldn't get out of it. From the moment they received the order, every time these crossbows killed a person in the future, their families would be tied even more tightly to the second prince's war chariot. If they were to be stained with the blood of other princes, or even then, they would have no way out. But he had no way to resist. Not to mention that the production had already begun. Could he back out even if it hadn't begun? His family had some influence. But it was insignificant when compared to the second prince's strength. Perhaps, his family would be annihilated in half a day and a night if he were to decline this business. High risk often meant high return. As a businessman, when he received a business deal that could bring him 300% or even more profit, it was not a bad idea to risk his life for it. Moreover, there was a faint political meaning to this matter. If he could obtain a status or a reward because of this, therefore, Zhao Wuji felt as if he had eaten a fly. But he still smiled and praised him. This fly is disgusting at first. But it's very nutritious. After all, it's rich in protein. The production of these Xian beast crossbows had finally been completed in a short time. And there hadn't been any mistakes along the way. The Zhao family's patriarch Zhao Wuji had finally relaxed a bit. But his nerves had become even more tense. In his heart, he knew very well that the journey to the capital with the crossbow would be the real competition. Therefore, Zhao Wuji had stopped all of his family's businesses. Instead, he had gathered all of his family's experts to escort these crossbows to the capital. Moreover, he was still worried. So, he had hired the Jiangnan Trade Union at a great cost. He had even asked the Jiangnan Trade Union's vice president to personally lead a group of experts to ensure that nothing would go wrong. But he had just finished his preparations when the second prince had already sent his elite guards to escort these crossbows to the capital. This had been a surefire way of insurance. But it had only made Zhao Wuji even more frightened. He had arranged a considerable amount of escort strength. And it was enough to deal with the vast majority of unforeseen events. However, it was obvious that the second prince was still worried. Since he was so serious about this matter, didn't that mean that the delivery of this batch of hand crossbows might meet with some unexpected interception? Some interception that they couldn't deal with the strength of the escorts they had arranged? And it could be said that the true purpose of these crossbows was very clear. So, his previous plan to get lucky had also failed. The horse under his crotch had taken a step forward. And it was getting closer to the bloody struggle between the imperial family. Finally, they had arrived at Tianxiang's capital. Eldest brother, we can confirm that this trip is safe. We'll reach Tianxiang's capital in another 200 kilometers. Even if someone wants to intercept us, I'm afraid that they won't dare to commit such a crime in the empire's capital. A thin man chased after them. He had a gratified smile on his face as he said, "It seems that we've been worried for nothing. I hadn't expected that things would go so smoothly. It seems that the second master's security measures are quite outstanding." This thin man was Zhao Wuji's younger brother. His name was Zhao Wutian. He was one of the few people in the Zhao family who knew the identity of the consignor of these goods. I hope so. Zhao Wuji let out a long sigh. Looking at the sky that was slowly darkening again, he suddenly felt that this gradually darkening world seemed to have become a huge black hole that was about to swallow him and his clan in one gulp, and he did not have the slightest ability to resist. There's only one last stretch of road left. Everyone, gather your strength, and advance at full speed. We must reach the capital as soon as possible, and hand over this batch of goods. Only then can we truly unload our burdens. Then, we can rest in peace. Zhao Wuji exhaled a long breath, and tried hard to dispel the messy thoughts in his mind. Zhao Wuji said in a deep voice. Yes. Zhao Wu Tian replied. He then slowed down the speed of his horse. Then, he took out a small flag from his bosom, and waved it twice in the air. The entire team's speed had been quite fast, but it had suddenly increased by a lot. The sound of hurried hooves suddenly resounded. A tall and sturdy middle-aged man had caught up with them. He was riding a purplish-red horse. His face was covered with dust, and there was a faint trace of impatience on his face. Zhao family's lord, we're not far from Tianxiang. So, there's no need to hurry like this, right? We've been in a state of apprehension along the way. So, our brothers are exhausted. The sky is dark and it's difficult to travel at night. Moreover, it's very easy to change the situation. So, it would be better for us to find a place to rest for the night. Then, we'll continue our journey tomorrow morning. We're already 2 days ahead of schedule according to the previous deadline. So, we don't need to fight over the remaining time, right? Chapter 308. Today's outburst, the fourth watch. Shout at the top of his lungs, I'm begging for monthly votes. He had been suppressing a bellyful of anger along the way. Until now, he didn't even know what he was escorting. Along the way, they had been acting mysteriously. Apart from hurrying along, they had been hurrying along. He and his 20 companions were so exhausted that they almost fell apart. Yet, nothing had happened from the beginning to the end. Isn't this just tormenting us? The faces of the Zhao family's people were solemn, as if their mother had just died. The other group of bastards had come out of nowhere, and they were extremely arrogant. Crap! They're treating us like odd-job slaves. Damn it! Do they think we're the emperor's imperial bodyguards? Therefore, Meng Xiaosong had been very depressed along the way. At this very moment, especially after rushing for an entire day, his buttocks were almost broken from the jolting of the horse's back. Seeing that night had fallen, he was sighing that it was finally time to rest. He was thinking of finding an inn to have a good drink, and when he was in the mood, he would find a girl to have some fun with. Who would have thought that there would be an abrupt order to speed up in front of him? Is there any justice in this world? Is there any reason for this? Every time we go on a mission, it's like we're on a sightseeing tour. When have we ever been in such a difficult situation? If it weren't for the price of 50,000 taels of silver, I wouldn't have been interested in making this trip in person. But I'm treating you like people. Don't crawl into the donkey shed. Therefore, Vice President Meng Xiaosong couldn't bear it any longer. He came up and asked in a loud voice. This matter is of great importance. We have to be careful. President Meng is very magnanimous. Please forgive us. Zhao Wuji forced a smile and cupped his hands in obeisance. Crap. This matter is of great importance. You've said this sentence at least 800 times on the way. You might not find it annoying, but I find it annoying. Zhao Wuji, this man advises you not to refuse the face that is given to you. This man only came to escort you because you paid a lot of money. We are not your Zhao family's servants. You have to understand this clearly. Don't eat lard and be blinded by greed. Meng Xiaosong was anxious. He had heard the phrase, this matter is of great importance on the way here. He had heard it so many times that his ears had gotten calluses. And now, he had heard it again at this critical juncture. He couldn't help but explode. Zhao Wuji forced a smile. He was about to say something and explain a little. After all, he couldn't allow an internal strife to break out. But, he hadn't expected that 4 large horses would gallop over at the same time. The 4 riders had cold expressions on their faces as they rushed over. They glared at Meng Xiaosong. Lengling said, "What's going on? What are you yelling about? You're making a big fuss here as if your own mother just died. What's the matter?" These 4 knights were members of the Divine Storm Guard. They had been on a long and arduous journey. So, they had been complaining incessantly in their hearts for a long time. However, they weren't willing to see Meng Xiaosong take the initiative to launch an attack. We haven't even expressed our dissatisfaction. Who do you think you are? Meng Xiaosong could clearly feel the dense murderous aura coming from these four people. His heart was immediately filled with rage. A few insignificant Gold Xian warriors actually dare to show off their might in front of an Earth Xian expert like me? How dare you threaten me? Cursing at me? Is there still justice in this world? Isn't that logical? What's wrong? Do you have any objections? Meng Xiaosong coldly glared back at them. He placed his hand on the hilt of his sword as he faced Lengleng. However, Meng Xiaosong soon regretted his decision. Dozens of warriors had surrounded him from all directions in the blink of an eye. Shwa shwa shwa, a few sounds were heard as they unsheathed their long swords and broadswords. Dozens of warriors didn't utter a single word as they shouted. Instead, they rushed towards Meng Xiaosong at the same time. Their swords and sabers mercilessly hacked towards him. Crazy. They've all gone crazy. It must be said that these people were only Gold Xian experts. So, they might not be able to deal with Meng Xiaosong, who had already reached the Earth Xian realm. However, these people's actions were very unexpected. After all, they were all companions. Meng Xiaosong's mouth might be unhappy, but he wouldn't go as far as to start a fight. However, these people weren't giving him any face at all. They didn't even have time to prepare for a fight. Stop! Everyone, stop! We're all on the same side. Zhao Wuji's forehead was beaded with sweat. He hastily rushed over to mediate. Bang! Bang! Sounds were heard as they managed to escape from the siege. However, another group of knights had already prepared to charge forward. It was obvious that these warriors weren't very strong. However, they were proficient in the art of joint attacks. Once they started to attack, they would advance wave after wave. They wouldn't stop until the enemy had fallen. Zhao Wuji was so anxious that he almost couldn't speak. Everyone, we're all on the same side. We're all doing this for the greater good. So, why should we damage our friendship? Both sides finally stopped after many attempts of persuasion. The second prince's imperial bodyguards were used to being tyrannical. So, how could they possibly put Meng Xiaosong in their eyes? So, what if you're an Earth Xian expert? Several Earth Xian experts have died by our hands. Do you think you're missing one? Don't look down on your Earth Xian cultivation. We're only Gold Xian experts. We're the imperial bodyguards. We're officials. You're a civilian. As long as you haven't reached a transcendent level like Tian Xian, we can do whatever we want with you. Do you still dare to have a temper? If you don't accept it, we'll give you a rebel's hat and make you stay in jail. Several of the prince's imperial bodyguards looked at Meng Xiaosong's plump buttocks with malice. I've heard that the felons in the prison like to play with flowers. Meng Xiaosong was about to flare up. However, Zhao Wuji whispered something in his ear. Meng Xiaosong immediately became well-behaved. These people are the imperial bodyguards. These few words dispelled Meng Xiaosong's anger. Instead, it turned into fear. Since ancient times, the people had never fought with the officials. This was a truth that had never changed since time immemorial. Even if the emperor's imperial bodyguards were to behead a local official for no reason, nobody would dare to say anything. So, why would I be a trifling Jianghu person? Moreover, I'm a Jianghu person with a family and a business. No wonder Zhao Wuji behaved like a grandson. So that's how it is. This is a mission for the imperial family. I wonder if I'll be able to get an official position after this mission is completed. Meng Xiaosong looked at these imperial bodyguards with a flattering look in his eyes as he thought of this. The team continued to move forward. The atmosphere had become much more harmonious because of this small disturbance. There was a mountain in front of them. This mountain was the Tianxiang city's Iron Wall Mountain. It was the natural barrier of the Tianxiang city. They could vaguely see the Tianxiang city from the top of this mountain. At this point, it could be said that the mission had been confirmed to be 99% complete. they could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Zhao Wuji let out a long sigh. He raised his hand, and ordered them to rest for a while at the foot of the mountain. Then, the team started to cook. They were ready to eat their fill. Then, they would spur their horses to speed up the rest of the journey in one fell swoop. They wanted to find a happy place in the Tianxiang city as soon as possible. Smoke rose from the kitchen, and the fragrance of rice spread from the cauldron. The smell of barbecued meat also spread from the iron grill. The group of big men greedily swallowed their saliva. They had been mentally and physically exhausted this entire journey. It had been extremely unbearable. They could finally rest for a while. Then, they could relax and eat a big meal. "Let's eat!" Zhao Wutian shouted in high spirits. He carried a big iron bowl and moved forward. He, let's eat. Do you still want to eat? I could have made you hungry ghosts. But, our time is very limited. So, I have no choice but to send you to the underworld to eat. A sinister sneer, like the cold wind blowing from hell, spread out in a chilling manner. Who is it? Come out. Everyone tensed up. They stood up, and unsheathed their swords at the same time. They then vigilantly looked at the surrounding dark mountain forest. I've come to rob you. A loud roar resounded in high spirits. A blue light flashed with a loud rumble. The 6 cauldrons on the ground exploded with a bang. The cooked rice was scattered in all directions. The fragments of the cauldrons were sent flying in all directions. 5 or 6 miserable screams were heard in succession. Several people had been injured by the fragments of the cauldrons. Tian Xian expert. Everyone cried out in alarm. No one was an exception. It didn't matter whether it was the Earth Xian expert Meng Xiaosong or the arrogant imperial bodyguards. A blue silhouette rushed out like a rocket. Several bang sounds were heard. Several warriors were thrown into the air like silk balls. Then, they glided in the sky. A black-clothed and masked figure stood in the middle of the field. He stretched out his hand, and grabbed Zhao Wutian's neck. Then, he lifted him up. It seemed as if he was lifting a little chick. Zhao Wutian's limbs were powerlessly struggling in the air. His face had turned purple. Speak! Where are those crossbows? A blue light flickered on the masked man's body. His fingers gradually tightened. A tyrannical and cold light flashed in his eyes. Kill! Loud shouts were heard from all around. 30 or 40 people brandished their swords. They didn't care about Zhao Wutian's life or death. Zhao Wuji became anxious. He shouted, "Be careful of my second brother." Another excited roar was heard from the pitch-black mountain forest. Then, another black-clothed and masked man's body flashed with a blue light. His left hand was holding a sword, and his right hand was holding a sword. The previous black-clothed and masked man, Leng, looked at Zhao Wutian, who was struggling in her hand. Her voice didn't carry the slightest trace of emotion. "You'll die if you don't speak. Don't tell me that you're in a carriage. I don't believe in such a childish lie. You'll only have one end if you dare to deceive me. Die!" At. Zhao Wutian's legs were flailing in disorder. His eyes were filled with fear. Suddenly, a yellow light flashed, and Zhao Wutian let out a blood-curdling screech. He twitched twice, and then stopped moving. "Scoundrel," the black-clothed man cursed. Then, he turned around and pounced. The caravan of nearly 500 people from the 3 sides fell into chaos. Zhao Wuji let out a mournful howl amidst the chaos. "Second brother." Suddenly, he pounced towards a warrior in embroidered robes. You actually killed my second brother." This embroidered soldier was the leader of the Second Prince's Divine Wind Guards, Zhang Xiyuan Shao. However, he became even angrier as he faced Zhao Wuji's questioning. His face turned red as he roared in a stern voice, "Zhao Wuji, do you dare to spoil the Second Master's great plan? Your younger brother is greedy for life and afraid of death. He would have already divulged the secret if I had acted a little later. So, It's a matter of course for me to kill him. Your Zhao clan will be beheaded if he divulges the secret and spoils the great plan. You idiot. Chapter 309. A loud shout came from the sky, "Senior brother, we might as well kill all of these people. Then, we'll look for those crossbows. They must be among their belongings. Don't tell me that they're going to fly to the sky." A figure flashed with a blue light as he flew out horizontally. The blue light of the sword in his hand flashed for several meters as he appeared, and gave rise to a series of pitiful screams. He broke through the crowd, and cut open a path of death. Blood swirled in the air as he charged towards the center of the crowd. Zhang Cun Shao shouted, "Everyone form a circle, and form an iron bucket killing formation. Let's fight the enemy together." All the warriors responded to his command, and quickly moved towards the center. Shouts of "kill" could be heard everywhere. They couldn't resist the three Tianxian experts, but they were gradually able to stabilize their position. There was a towering tree. There was no one there, but a faint sigh could be heard. It was Jun Dashao who was hiding in that tree. Jun Dashao shook his head as he watched the fight below. He was speechless at these three people who had appeared out of nowhere. They're so unprofessional at robbing. I really don't know how Lei Wu Bei trained them. Jun Mo Xie's eyesight had allowed him to see that these three people were Lei Wu Bei's three remaining disciples. Acquaintances. They're too familiar. These three people can't do anything right, but they're good at spoiling things. They're typical good-for-nothings. It's a robbery. You came out without saying a word, and then attacked us. But you even said a few words before you attacked. This left Jun Moxie speechless. What a load of crap. Damn it, not only did you fail in your robbery, you even messed up the perfect plan that this young master had made. How much effort would I have put in? Fortunately, Lei Jianhong hadn't said, "This mountain was opened by me, and this tree was planted by me. If you want to pass through, you'll have to pay for the road." Otherwise, Jun Mo Xia would have been so irritated that he would have fallen down from the tree. Jun Moxie had brought his guards here a day earlier. They dug traps and set up ambushes. In the end, Jun Moxie threw a pill to each of them to hide their aura. He arranged for more than 200 people to hide in the forest not far away. Naturally, they were all hiding in the underground caves that had been dug beforehand. Once this group of people entered the encirclement, he would immediately strike with lightning speed, then he would pack up his things and immediately escape. Who would have thought that before these people could enter the encirclement, they would be intercepted by the three hotheads and killed? This really makes me speechless. Jun Moxie quickly sent out a message, and told his men to stay calm and wait. He wanted to see what would happen next. It seemed that these three guys were very strong, but it wouldn't be easy for them to succeed. So, he decided to let them fight amongst themselves. Lei Jianhong was in the middle of his thoughts when he suddenly issued a low whistle. Then, a burst of orderly footsteps resounded. A large group of black-clothed masked men rushed down from the mountain, and joined the battle circle in a flash. The deadlock between the two sides was broken in an instant. The leader of the Godly Wind Guard, Zhang Cun Shao, was hit in the chest. He spouted a mouthful of blood, and was sent tumbling backwards. He shouted loudly, and flipped his hand. Then, a flaming arrow shot into the sky with a sharp whistling sound. It exploded with a bang, and a blood-red firework appeared in the night sky. It looked extremely lifelike. It seems that the Blood Sword sect has been hiding in the dark. Let's see who's stronger and who's weaker. In any case, I'll just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. I'll be the fisherman who reaps the benefits. Jun Moxie was squatting on the branch of a tree. The branch was moving up and down in the wind. It was very rhythmic. People might think that he was doing something secret with the tree if he were to reveal himself. Jun Dashao rested his chin on his hand, and waited with great interest. It's very lively. The disciples of the Blood Sword sect, Lei Wu Bei, and Li Yuan's secret experts are going to fiercely collide with each other. It's best if both sides win. Well, it would be best if both sides die. I've thought about it, but I don't have any extravagant hopes. Well, I'll just watch for now. I won't say anything. It was a pity that the subsequent outcome was completely beyond everyone's expectations. The Blood Sword sect's signal had been sent out for some time. But, not even a shadow of the Blood Sword sect's experts had arrived. The empty mountain was silent. Only the sounds of "kill" could be heard. Zhao Wuji and his men's faces were deathly pale under the illumination of the remaining flames. Their faces were full of despair. I thought that you had helpers behind you. But, it turned out to be an empty fort strategy. Lei Jianhong sneered. He then ridiculed, is this empty fort strategy very amusing? You're using such a shameful trick to show off in front of me. You're not playing with the enemy, you're playing with yourself. If you're really tired of living, then tell me. I'll help you. Zhao Wuji rolled away like a lazy donkey. He cut a sorry figure as he dodged the incoming blade. Then, he cried out, Commander Zhang. Commander Zhang, where are our reinforcements? Didn't you say that they've been following us? How? He had wanted to ask, how come there's no movement? But the opponent in front of him slashed his blade 3 times in a row. He was in a hurry to dodge, and his words were interrupted 3 times in a row. It sounded like he was stuttering. How should I know? Do you think I'm not worried? Zhang Cun Shao cursed, you should take care of your own life first. At present, the Li family's elite warriors were under the command of 3 Sky Xian experts. They had already gained an overwhelming advantage over the enemy. Under the pressure, Zhao Wuji's forces were gradually compressed into a very small circle. Zhao Wuji's 100-odd men were lucky enough to survive. They had formed a defensive line with great difficulty. They had formed a circle, and were doing their utmost to resist the enemy's storm-like attacks. No one was left alive outside the circle. Meng Xiaosong, Zhao Wuji, and Zhang Cun Shao were in the center of the circle. Their complexions were deathly pale. It had been almost an incense stick's worth of time since the signal had been sent. But, there was still no trace of the Blood Sword Hall's reinforcements. Meng Xiaosong couldn't help but curse. His voice had a sobbing tone to it, what's going on? How can someone so brazenly attack the imperial bodyguards in the capital's territory? I say, sir, this lowly one has to take care of both the old and the young. It's not easy for me to follow you out this time. You should think of a solution quickly. You're the local tyrant of the capital. You should pay attention. Meng Xiaosong's Xian cultivation was very high. He had already reached the middle level of the Earth Xian realm. He was the strongest expert in Zhao Wuji's group. However, he had lived like a prince for many years. So, he had lost his iron-blooded murderous aura. Now, he cherished his life even more. Even if there was a great opportunity for him to be promoted and make a fortune, he still needed to be alive. He was already complaining in his heart when he saw the urgency of the situation. It was too late for regrets. I've been drinking tea at home, fighting birds, walking dogs, bullying commoners, and seizing a girl. I've been blinded by lard in order to earn those 50,000 silver taels. But, I haven't even gotten my hands on the money. Instead, I'm going to lose my life here. Zhang Cun Shao couldn't help but get angry. What nonsense are you shouting for? The morale of our troops is in chaos. But, you're still shouting for us? You're disturbing our morale and scattering our fighting spirit. Shut up. Do you believe that I won't chop you into pieces with my saber if you keep shouting? Meng Xiaosong couldn't help but get angry when he heard this. He used his saber to protect his body as he angrily shouted, what kind of reasoning is this? You're the imperial bodyguards, the emperor's personal attendants, and the government officials. We're just a group of ants. We've followed you out to deliver goods. But, we're about to lose our lives. And, you're putting on airs in front of me? You won't even let me speak? He didn't wait for Zhang Cun Shao to reply. Instead, he suddenly shouted at the top of his lungs, "Help me! Help me!" His Xian cultivation was profound. In fact, he was only second to Lei Jianhong and the other two Tian Xian experts. Moreover, he had been holed up in the rear since the beginning of the battle. So, he hadn't sustained even the slightest injury on his body. So, his shout had shaken the surrounding area, and had spread far and wide. Jun Imo Xia, who was still on the branch, almost fell head first. "Boss, you're still an Earth Xian expert. Even though you can't be ranked in the whole world, but you're still a high-ranking person in your area. Why are you so afraid of death?" The black-masked Lei Jianhong couldn't help but stagger. Then, he burst into loud laughter and shouted in a sinister manner, "Shout! Shout! Shout louder! It's useless even if you shout until your throat is broken. No one will come to save you." Jun Moxie was left speechless. His whole body trembled violently. He felt a strong urge to faint. "Oh, God! Let me die." How could I actually hear such a classic phrase in this world at this time? Meng Xiaosong's shout for help was probably because he was afraid of death. But, Lei Jianhong's words were indeed famous. In a trance, Jun Moxie seemed to see a sinister and wretched man facing a weak little girl in a secluded alley. Then, he laughed complacently, "Shout! Shout even if you shout until your throat is broken." That trance scene was a bit melodramatic. But, it couldn't be compared to what was happening in front of him. A man was talking to another man in front of him. Jun Moxie swallowed a mouthful of saliva. "I can't take it anymore. I'm going to vomit. It's too disgusting." The situation on the scene was still in full swing. Zhao Wuji had brought the Zhao family's troops with him. Almost all of Meng Xiaosong's Southern Trade Union's members had died. It had to be admitted that the second prince's 200 divine storm guards were of the highest quality. 8 or 9 out of 10 of the surviving 150 people were members of the divine storm guards. In fact, the strength of the divine storm guards couldn't be considered very high. In fact, they were slightly inferior to the men of the Zhao family and the Southern Trade Union. However, they were very experienced in battle. So, they were able to hold their ground even if they fell into a disadvantageous position. Moreover, they were very good at fighting together. Their teamwork was very strong. Therefore, the Zhao family and the Southern Trade Union had a formidable advantage in this pitch-black night. As for the people of the Zhao clan and the Jiangnan Trade Union, they were much stronger than the people of the Divine Storm Guard. But, each and every one of them were used to acting alone. They were Jianghu people who rarely cooperated with others. Therefore, once they encountered such a large-scale chaotic battle, they would only rely on their own strength to kill. Therefore, the first to lose their lives were the experts, who were stronger, but lacked the spirit of cooperation. Lei Jianhong and the other two men were attacking from 3 different directions. It was obvious that they were getting impatient. After all, this place was too close to the capital. The consequences could be big or small if the news were to leak out. "I'm very ashamed that I've been disqualified from accompanying you to your bed. Woo, it's like this. I took a nap the day before yesterday. Then, I stayed up all night. I didn't sleep yesterday either. I went to the hospital after my outburst. Then, I was very sleepy. So, I unknowingly fell asleep on the hospital bed. My younger brother wanted to go to the toilet in the middle of the night. He kept calling me. But, I didn't wake up. He couldn't move. So, he finally couldn't bear it any longer, and fell asleep. I was berated by the nurses and doctors this morning. My younger brother was filled with grief and indignation. He pointed at me and said, 'Get lost.' I apologized in every possible way. But, it was to no avail. So, I was gloriously laid off. As a punishment, I paid for a special nurse from my own pocket. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.